Good afternoon, everyone. Please be seated. May I welcome members and the viewing public to this meeting of the full Council, which is being held at Ponds Forge International Sports Centre. Please can I ask the Director of Governance to announce the housekeeping arrangements, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. To help keep everyone safe, please maintain social distancing at all times. Please wear a face covering at all times within the venue unless you have an exemption. It can be removed once seated, but you may wish to leave it on. Hand sanitizer will be available for you to use. Please remain seated as much as possible during the meeting and do not congregate around exits and entrances. Follow any signage which is provided, such as one-way systems, to help keep you safe. If you have any concerns or are unsure, please ask a member of staff. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please take instruction from staff and stewards. The assembly point is at the front of the building. Please can I request everyone to switch mobile devices to silent mode. Roaming microphones will be used for councillors wishing to speak from the main floor of the meeting room. Please allow time for the Democratic Services Officer to reach you before you begin to speak so you can be heard clearly. The meeting today will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. Photography, video and sound recording of the meeting is permitted, but the Lord Mayor does have discretion to withdraw or suspend this permission if the recording is disrupting the conduct of the meeting, is being undertaken in a manner which could capture personal information, or if a member of the public participating objects to being recorded. Any member of the public due to speak at the meeting who does not wish to be recorded should say so at the start of their speech, and the Lord Mayor will suspend the permission to record their contribution. I would also like to remind members that we are in a pre-election period relating to the Firth Park by-election scheduled for the 16th of September. Therefore, please refrain from making political party references or any specific reference to issues arising within Firth Park ward. Finally, Councillor Paul Wood is struggling to speak again today, so all of his responses to supplementary questions will be provided in writing. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Gillian. I shall conclude these housekeeping announcements by stating that this meeting is scheduled to finish at 5:30, but I propose to extend the meeting by 30 minutes to provide an opportunity for members of this council to pay tribute to former councillors. I also propose to adjourn the meeting at the appropriate point in the proceedings so that members can take a comfort break. Before I start the formal business for today, I now propose to hold a minute's silence in memory of two former councillors. These are former Councillor Martin Brailsford, who sadly died suddenly on Monday of this week, and former councillor and alderman of the city, Mr. Henry Studrock, who passed away on the 25th of June at the age of 97. This will be, I'm so sorry about this. This will be followed by a personal tribute to Henry to be given by Councillor Peter Price. I'm pleased to report that several members of Henry's family are in attendance at this meeting today. Henry served on several committees while he was on the council. He was the chair of the Town Council Committee in 1961 and 62, chair of the Highways Committee from 1963 to 1967, chair of Highways and Sewerage Committee in 1967 to 1968, and he chaired was chair of the Recreation Committee from 1969 to 1974. He became an alderman representing the Handsworth ward on the 20th of May in 1970. Henry was the last surviving alderman of the city. Henry retired from the council in May 1974 when he became a South Yorkshire County Councillor. Away from politics, Henry served his country in World War II as a flight engineer in an Halifax bomber squadron, and he worked at Firth Browns for over 40 years. I shall provide an opportunity later in the meeting for members to pay tribute to our former councillor Brailsford. Please join me now to stand and remember Martin and Jock. Please be seated. I shall now call on Councillor Peter Price to pay a tribute to Jock. Can we have a microphone, please, to Councillor Price? Are there no microphones available?
It's on. Sorry about that. Thanks, Lord Mayor, for just giving me this opportunity to say a few words about my old friend Jock. Surely one of the real stalwarts of the City Council, a true father of the house. Just add a little bit of his background. Jock, at 17, an apprentice, walked out of his job and volunteered to join up during the war. He actually led 35 bombing raids over Germany in the RAF and survived them all. And he came back to settle in Sheffield. Tremendous character. He lived in Shire Green all his life once he left Scotland, and married his wonderful wife, Bet. And together, they were the stalwarts of the local Labour Party. Every party had this type of person who do all the jobs, do all the running around, and Jock and Bet were those. But when I came on council in 1972, Jock was an alderman. Remember, in those days, councillors didn't get paid. If they got their earnings, they got £1 a day allowances plus any expenses. And you're expected to go on the bus because you were given a free bus pass. So people really did it for the love, not income. Because Jock lost his wages at Firth Browns, he went on nights so he could get more money and still come to council during the day. And he was also the shop steward for Firth Browns. On council, when he became the alderman in 1970, remember, there were 75 councillors on 3-year periods, and 25 aldermen, all sat on the top bench. And they were the chairs. They were elected by council for 6-year periods, and they usually got renewed. So once you became an alderman, you were on that top bench forever, and you were all the chairs. Jock served many positions. I remember him as the planning, and it was his name who was on the hole in the road, opened by Jock Sturrock. It didn't say Henry. It said Henry in brackets, Jock. Everybody called him Jock. So the hole in the road was his baby. When he came to recreation, well, I'd only been on council a year, and we opened at Sheaf Valley Baths. And Jock was the chairman then, and he was with Rolf Harris, bless him, and we did that wonderful mural, and both fell into the pool after he'd finished it. But that was Jock's baby, Sheaf Valley Baths. He then also built Concourt Sports Centre. He was chairman at that time. And of course, during the period, parks became synonymous with Sheffield, how the parks grew and improved over the years when Jock was around and involved in the parks. He also set up Sheffield Show, which gained a tremendous reputation in the city by many people. So, of course, in '74, the aldermanic bench was abolished, and Jock went to go into county council. Well, he quickly established himself at the county, became chairman of the county council, and continued the work on behalf of the city across the county. Tremendous hard-working character, and has committed most of his life to this city, we ought to be very proud to have had him. I have a long friend. One of the other bad points about him, you might think, it was his casting vote that won me the seat in the Brightside Ward Labour Party in 1972. So I've remained ever since Chuck did that to me. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave it at that. I mean, I don't need to add any more. His history speaks for itself. His family's here, and I just bow down to him because they've had to put up with a lot, like all children of councillors do. But Jock used to go camping with it, all his family camping. He organised the Labour Party camps at Springbank Week in the early days, committed to the city of Sheffield, and I think we owe him a great debt of gratitude, and his family, for all he contributed to this city. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that tribute, Councillor Price. May I also thank the family for being present here today to listen to Councillor Price's speech. Thank you very much. I'm now going to move on to the agenda. I'm asking for apologies for absence. I have a list. David Barker, Tony Dams, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Lee, Councillor Priestley, Councillor Rivers, Councillor Garbett and Councillor Saheed. Are there any further apologies for absence? Yes.
Councillor Mazza Iqbal.
Thank you for that. We now move on to item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. This item of business is to enable members of the Council to declare an interest in any item on the agenda. When declaring an interest, the member should refer to the item of business, state whether it's pecuniary or personal interest, and outline the reason for the declaration. Does any member wish to declare an interest? I can't see any hands up. Item 4 on the agenda is public questions and petitions and other communications. Public questions can be asked and petitions can be presented at the council meetings. Questions or petitions are required to be submitted 2 clear days in advance of the COVID-secure meetings to ensure public attendance at meetings to be managed in a secure way. For this, 4 petitions be presented and for this meeting there are 4 petitions that will be presented and questions will be taken from 5 members of the public. 1 further petition will be received in the absence of a presenter. A period of 60 minutes is allowed for this item. So, can I call upon the Chief Exec to announce petitions and may I request that petitioners be brief and keep within the time limit of 3 minutes. May I also request the that the executive members keep to the maximum of 5 minutes when responding to petitions. May I also ask that questioners be brief as possible when asking questions, and the executive members please stick to the allotted time. Chief Exec, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've received a petition containing 63 signatures requesting a meeting with the Housing Service to discuss criminal damage to vehicles on Brick Street. Carol Needham wishes to address the Council.
Good afternoon. On the 6th of August, we had friends to stay who parked their car in the residence car park. On the 7th of August, we discovered that all 4 of their tyres had been slashed. This caused not only additional expense for our friends, but meant they could not return home as planned. This was reported to the police at the time. On the 9th of August, one of the residents who was verbally abused and assaulted by the alleged perpetrator, who is also a resident. The following day, 10th of August, that resident found that all 4 tyres of his van were slashed. Both incidents were reported to the police at the time. On the 14th of August, we were woken and found that all the cars in the residence car park had had their tyres slashed. Also, a number of cars parked on Brick Street had also had their tyres slashed. A total of 14 cars were affected. That same morning, 14th of August, between 5:30 and 5:45 a.m, another resident witnessed the alleged perpetrator damaging the car tyres. He called out to try to stop the person continuing to damage the tyres, but the person did not stop. The resident recognised the alleged perpetrator and called the police to report this crime taking place. The alleged perpetrator was arrested by the police, only to be released shortly after. The other residents were informed by the resident who witnessed the crime taking place who the alleged perpetrator was, including that he is also a resident of the flats. Unfortunately, the resident who witnessed the crime does not feel able to make a statement to the police or council. As you can imagine, the residents have found this very stressful situation to deal with. A number of residents have been hit hard financially because of their car tyres have been damaged beyond repair. There are concerns that this situation could escalate, given that the alleged perpetrator has used a bladed or sharp instrument to cause the damage to tyres. He has been witnessed in the act of committing these crimes and has already assaulted a resident. Not only that, but the residents are now having to park elsewhere for fear of their tyres being slashed again. It is clear that the actions of the alleged perpetrator mean that he has breached paragraph 16 of the tenancy agreement. Paragraph 16 is, your household and visitors must not do anything which is illegal, dangerous, or which would cause nuisance, annoyance, harassment, alarm or distress to other people. This condition applies within the boundary of and in the locality of your property. We respectfully request that you take action to resolve this situation before it escalates into something significant. Finally, there are other matters on Brick Street which both police and council are already aware of. Thank you.
May I call upon Councillor Teal to respond to the petition, please?
Thank you very much for bringing your petition here. I do think that sounds like an extraordinarily difficult situation, and I have tremendous sympathy with you. I do think that you deserve to have action taken, and I understand from what I've read from police reports that, as you've already mentioned, there's great difficulty in taking action to detain this person because no one has been willing to give evidence against them, to provide a witness statement, and so that means the police have their hands tied somewhat. I agree, though, that it would be tremendously difficult to give a witness statement given what you've described, the behaviour of this person. I don't think any of us would feel safe around that, and so certainly we need to look at what can be done there. I understand that the police have visited all the people who've had their cars damaged, and also that the police have stepped up patrols, and also council staff are also doing more patrolling. So I hope that's something that you've actually noticed and that you're aware of. The other thing they're looking at is trying to set up a mobile camera to be able to potentially capture some evidence that the police will be able to use I'm not an expert in criminal law, but to be able to charge the person with the crimes that they are committing. So hopefully that's going to happen very soon. What I can commit to doing is discussing this with housing colleagues as well. We brought up paragraph 16. I think that's an excellent point. I think that's something that Council certainly ought to be able to be looking at in some detail and with a degree of great seriousness. Thank you very much for bringing your petition.
I've received a petition containing 57 signatures requesting the closure of the General between Horndean Road and Idsworth Road due to antisocial behaviour. Sohail Mahmood wishes to address the Council.
Good afternoon, councillors. It's a petition in front of you concerning the alleyway between Horndean Road and Ellerton Road. The alleyway was originally built for the residents of Horndean Road to use to go down onto Page Hall Road and come back up instead of going both ways round, which would have been longer for them. The problem is now that we've got people that are just using it as an alleyway, as a right-of-way to go up and down, that don't even live on Horndean Road. So what the problem is now that we've seen is that, and we have evidence of, is that child prostitution, paedophilia is going on that alleyway every single day. Class A, Class B drugs are being sold and consumed on the alleyway. Antisocial behaviour from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2, 3 in the morning. Gangs of children, gangs of kids, gangs of old men hanging about on there. Residents don't feel safe to walk on that alleyway. We don't feel safe coming out of our houses on Horndean Road. Damage has been done to properties. We put our bins out on Thursday nights, and the children that walk up from Idsworth Road, they kick our bins every Thursday, so we've got rubbish on the road. The alleyway is a problem. What we have proposed as a group, we are the Sheffield Network Association. What we have proposed is to make the alleyway, close it off, and make it into a green space for the residents of Horndean Road. We want our children to have a nice area. We want our children to feel safe when they come out. We feel if it's blocked off, it won't be a void space. It's not a void space now, but we've had settees, we've had 4 tables and chairs, dining tables, chairs, just being dumped on there. And it's the council that come every week and they pick them up and they take them. And every week, the people that do that, they know that the council are going to come and pick them up, so we might as well dump it on there. So it's not a void space, but it's being used as a void space to be dumped on. What we want to do, we want the council to close it off securely, and we want to use it as a community space, a green community space for our children. So they can go there, they can grow some vegetables, they can grow some plants. We can do something constructive for the residents of Horndean Road. The problem is that it's come to a point now where it's just got so bad that, like I said, we can't come out. My mum, she's 87. We've lived in that area all our life. When we open, like it's a hot day today, we open our window just a little bit and we are bang on the alleyway. We have the smell of cannabis, we have the smell of heroin coming into our house. She's 87, she doesn't deserve that. She's worked all her life here. You know, she's a law-abiding citizen. She should feel safe in her own house. She should be able to open her window and get some fresh air, not drugs coming in. Another thing is that it's a very big problem is the child prostitution that's going on over there and the paedophilia. We've told the police about this. The police's response was that we'll send patrols up. Well, how are you going to send patrols up? There's no cameras there. And if there were cameras there, they're not being monitored 24/7. So how do you know when you have to be up there? It's a really big problem. And it's getting worse and worse. Due to summertime, it did slack off a little bit because obviously you've got 8, 9 o'clock, it's still light, so people come after that. But when winter comes, from 4:30 onwards, we've got a lot of problems on that alleyway. So what we've proposed to the council, you've got the petition in front of you. That is every house on Horndean Road. Now, as councillors, you know about petitions. It's very hard to get everybody on a road to sign. That is everybody on Horndean Road. There's not one house that's missed on there. So it's a collective response from Horndean Road that something has to be done. We've come to yourselves to ask you, what can you do for us? So, yeah, I mean, if there's any more information that you need, obviously not today, but Mark Jones and Talib, you know, they've been very helpful by bringing this up to yourselves. They've got our information, so if anyone needs to contact us, they can contact us through Mark Jones and Talib. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
May I call upon Councillor Johnson to respond, please? Oh, it says Councillor Teal.
Thank you very much for bringing your petition. I'm horrified by what I've heard you say today. I was unaware of the extent of the issues that you brought to us. So consider today as being the first day of my involvement with this issue. And I think I better come and visit. I'm lead on sustainable neighbourhoods, and your neighbourhood doesn't sound sustainable to me. It's not acceptable to live under those conditions. You've raised some very serious safeguarding issues that we must also look into. We're obliged as a council, and I don't know what extent that information's come through to, possibly through to another department, so I'll have to check that with my colleagues. But it sounds deeply troubling, and I commit to you to come and visit and to learn more about what's happening and do our best to help you resolve this unfortunately long-standing issue. Thank you.
I've received a petition containing 10 signatures requesting the Council to make bold and meaningful public commitments on behalf of the City before COP26 begins. Jeff Cox wishes to address the Council.
Thank you. Geoffrey Cox. I live in Greenhill. The petition is asking Sheffield Council to make bold and meaningful commitments to action in the run-up to COP26 climate conference in November. Now, you might reasonably ask why I need to make this petition. You could say to me, this council has already declared climate and nature emergencies. You can say to me that it made implementing the RUTH report one of the half-dozen bases on which the cooperative executive was formed. And you can say to me that a 10-point action plan to implement the RUTH report has been promised for this autumn. My answer as to why this petition is needed is threefold, relating to timing, scope and ambition. On timing, COP26 will be the headline news item on every television channel for the whole first week of November this year. There will never be a better opportunity to bring home to the people of Sheffield that our efforts are needed, that our efforts are part of a much bigger global effort and are something to be proud of. It's a golden opportunity to show the city in a positive light and to gain public support and public enthusiasm for the measures we'll be taking. On scope, Any 10-point action plan to implement the Arup report will only deal with decarbonisation measures because that was the limit of their remit. It won't cover the nature emergency or other related issues like food security. This petition specifically asks that the city's commitments cover this wider scope. And finally, on ambition. With COP26 providing such a powerful following wind, this is not the time for timid or half-hearted measures. It's not the time for promises that have neither funding nor timescales attached to them. There will never be a better time to make bold and meaningful commitments, and that is what the petition is calling for. And to conclude, the Secretary-General of the United Nations has described the most recent assessment of the current situation as Code Red for Humanity. And I'm going to repeat that. Code Red for Humanity. There can surely be no more compelling rallying call to action than that. The City of Sheffield needs courageous leadership at this time. Please don't let us down. Thank you.
May I call on Councillor Johnson to respond to that petition, please?
Well, thank you very much. I was going to say thank you for bringing the petition, because I'm really pleased to see someone coming and asking those questions. And if you ask why you need to bring this petition, yeah, what you've explained is exactly bang on the nail for that. It's the biggest challenge of our time. We need to be asking those relevant questions. Might disappoint you in what I'm going to say next, but let's see. The point is, and the point you're making is that COP26 raises the expectations for action on climate change. That's got to be a good thing. COP26 is not a Sheffield thing. It's primarily it's a global thing. It calls for action at global level between governments who are parties to that convention. We're asking governments to make those critical commitments that we need to take. We need them to take to tackle global warming on a global scale. But you'll see from our motion today that's in the papers, at the Poland COP at Katowice in 2018, COP24, that's when the UK government, along with others, signed up to saying it was having domestic institutional arrangements, public participation and engagement with local communities so that local areas can play their part in delivering the UK's contributions in the Paris Climate Agreement. And that hasn't happened. That's the problem. So local government can deliver, but as you know, it's central government that holds the purse strings. It's also central government that lays down all the legislation and powers there. And I suppose the point is the one that you yourself made. There's no point making promises without funding commitments there to put those into practice. And that is the situation that we're in there. So as I said, local government can deliver, but we need central government on board to do that. And so this is a challenge to central government. Given they've got the honour of hosting COP26 this autumn, we want them to partner up with us in local government right across the country to actually do the stuff that needs to be done. I mean, it's in start. You said it's not enough to say there'll be a 10-point plan and whatever, so I can say, yeah, we intend to have a 10-point plan this autumn. There's some retrofitting of council housing. It's a start. There's a lot more to be done. Some retrofitting of private sector housing. Again, it's making a small inroad there. It's a small inroad that wasn't being made before, but it is being done now. Transport, as you know, along with housing, transport is one of the big sectors where there's huge carbon emissions. On transport, this is where we do have ambition, and we also do have scope for radical transformation there. We have some quite inspirational programmes to change the city in the biggest way that it's been since Councillor Price was referring to what Alderman Sturrock was doing in the 1950s, 1960s. The Transforming Cities programme really opening up the city to low-carbon, zero-carbon ways of travelling, supporting public transport, supporting walking, supporting cycling, making the city a cleaner place. We need to get to grips with the fact that actually it's quite cheap to run cars and drive them into the city centre. That is a big driver of climate change. So we have to decide whether we want what we want to do in that respect. One big step forward is there is currently a proposal for a lot of capital funding for transport and infrastructure and environment spending that's being worked up, and doing a lot of work with the officers here and the city region to get literally millions, actually hundreds of millions of pounds out of government into here, into the local economy, and investing in new sustainable infrastructure in the city. That is all, I'm pleased to say, going into sustainable transport now. So none of this old road widening stuff from the past. We are past that point, but I won't underestimate the point. There is so much more to go. But I want to set out that direction and hopefully agree that is the direction we need to go in. So I can't give specific commitments with specific allocations of funding at the moment because I don't have those. But believe me, everything that we're all doing and looking at this here really is there to tackle the climate crisis right across the board. It needs to be done. Thank you.
I've received an electronic petition containing 1,119 signatures objecting to the cuts to community-led learning in Sheffield. May Connolly wishes to address the Council.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. My name is May. I'm from Healy Trust, but I'm also here with other organisations who have been delivering adult learning in communities across Sheffield for 10 to 15 years. Aspiring Communities Together, Darnell Community Forum, Healy Trust, Manor and Castle Development Trust, SOPHIE, Woodhouse Community Forum and Zest all came together to discuss this. In discussing the issues, which essentially are that whilst there might not be monetary cuts, there will be cuts to services. There's cuts to jobs. People have lost jobs and already been made redundant. Nobody was told about this until they opened the tender on the Tuesday that was then due in 2.5 weeks later. There are people sat behind me today who found out that their jobs were at risk by opening that bit of paper downloaded from a portal and not told by any human being. Moving forward from that, the groups got together to discuss how we could potentially move forward, how we could still deliver these contracts when the risk comes down. The risk of not being paid comes to our delivery. That rests on the fact that we deal with the people furthest from support and try to get them to support. To say that we then have to deliver 10 people attending 85% of a 6-week course, people who sometimes can't leave their houses, people who have medical conditions, mental health conditions, that appointments clash with, social service involvement, other agencies, children. Some of them don't attend all 6 sessions, and we have to be clear about that. To say that, to now ask us to do payment by results that means that we have to deliver their attendance is ridiculous. The relationship between us as organisations and the council department that we dealt with has become completely toxic. We're not given information. We're asked to deliver a professional service, and we aren't treated like professionals. There was no consultation done about the changes to this at all. I don't know what other people have been told, but it has become clear that some people knew about it and some people didn't. None of the organisations did. The council hired its own information and guidance officers as far back as April and May. They're the people that are now losing their jobs. Something's amiss. The petition asks that you just treat us like professionals and have a conversation with us. We have made some changes. We've had a meeting with some of the council, but it was a listening exercise. Everyone felt very heard, and that was great, but there was no information received back. That's not two-way communication. That meeting was held an hour before the deadline. The deadline was moved, but it just goes to show there was no forward planning to be able to communicate with these people that represent these communities who have already been affected by COVID and already affected by cuts in other areas. It's really clear that that relationship isn't working. So the ask is to examine that relationship, to be more open and transparent as a council, so that we can move forward in providing this service which is much needed. Thank you.
Can I call upon Councillor Turpin to respond, please?
Thanks. Thanks, May, and everybody else for bringing the petition. And I'd just like to begin by apologising wholeheartedly for the relationship that the Council has with these organisations for just getting so low. And there's not a great deal I can do about the past, and indeed a lot of it happened before my time, and also lots of the criteria for the funding has been handed down from the city region as part of the devolution deal. But what I would like to do, and hopefully you've already been contacted, is to start to rebuild and recreate the relationship that the council has with the community organisations, and accept that things have gone wrong and there has been a lot of disruption, and this year is going to be different and difficult. But hopefully be having much more frequent meetings with council officers, and also I will be attending some of those meetings, and I want to have regular meetings through the year with each of the organisations on a one-to-one basis, and really start to work on the trust that has clearly been lost. And hopefully together we can rebuild that relationship, get through this year, and when it comes around again for next year, everyone will be much more prepared for whatever new territory there is then. I can't stand here and promise that there'll be extra money, but neither am I ruling it out. I think once we look at how the tendering process has gone, and once we start to have those discussions in earnest, and we'll see what can be done, if anything. And obviously that's not going to entirely be my decision, but rest assured I will absolutely fight for the corner of the voluntary community organisations. And like I said, whatever it has been, I sincerely hope it is not going to be in the future. Thank you.
Finally, I've received a petition containing 52 signatures requesting that Leopold Street and Pinston Street be reopened to traffic. There is no speaker to the petition, and it's recommended that the petition is referred to Councillor Douglas Johnson.
Councillor Johnson, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's probably simplest to respond in writing to whoever sent in. I assume we have their contact details.
Okay, thank you. It's now time for public questions. May I remind questioners of my earlier statement requesting that they be as brief as possible when asking questions, and the same to executive members when responding. This is to ensure that as much time as possible is available for other items of business on the agenda to be dealt with today. Thank you. Can I ask Danny Olsbrook to come to the microphone, and can I ask Matt Killier to stand by, please? Something's not on. Danny Aylesbrook? No? Okay, we'll go on to the next question then. Matt Killier?
Good afternoon, councillors. I'm Matthew Killier from Fulwood in Sheffield, Hallam. My question is on renewable energy requirements for new development in Sheffield. Sheffield City Council declared a climate emergency in 2019 and has committed Sheffield to be a zero-carbon city by 2030. In the Arup report commissioned by the Council and released this year, domestic heating was identified as one of the single largest contributors to emissions in the city. Yet the Council continues to grant outline planning permission to substantial developments with a minimum requirement of only 10% of energy demands to be met by renewable and low-carbon energy. Sheffield, like many cities, already has a huge task in retrofitting its current housing stock to net zero standards. It makes no sense to add further to this monumental problem by building new developments that will subsequently need to be converted. Such a course of action would impose unfair and unnecessary costs on those new homeowners, and it will inevitably impose unnecessary additional costs on all of us if, as likely, public money is made available to help with these conversions. Therefore, will the Council commit to significantly increasing this minimum requirement of 10% and to net zero housing for all planning applications as a matter of urgency as part of its revised Sheffield Local Plan and core planning guidelines? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. May I call upon Councillor Johnson, please, to reply?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for your question. It's something I completely agree with. And actually, my colleagues have often been critical of planning applications where a developer isn't offering nothing more than 10% of renewable energy generation on site. It's a well out-of-date policy, isn't it? The difficulty is that it is the policy, it is the set policy of this council that we won't require any more than that from developers. And it's a policy that's ripe for change. It needs to be updated, doesn't it? Well, I think we'd all agree on that. The process of changing it, however, means that it seems to be drawn into the local plan. And as you probably know, the local plan issue is something that has been knocking along for a while. We're all looking forward to when we can get in a position to get that out for public consultation, get a draft plan out there, get a finalised plan out there that, of course, has been improved by the government's planning inspectors. Because without that plan, we can't insist that property developers stick to it more than that. That is the way the planning process works. Planning isn't about what we want to build, it's only about how we can restrain what private property developers want to put their money into. So completely agree it's right for change, and could do with your help as well as ours when the draft plan comes out for consultation to push for as much renewable energy production as we can possibly fit into this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Can I call upon June Luxon to come to the microphone and ask her question, and then can I ask Sylvia Ashton to stand by, please?
Good afternoon to everyone that's here. I would like to state, sorry, I'm not into public speaking. I object to the closing of Pinston Street and Leopold Street because my bank and our bank and our opticians is in Orchard Place. To get from Arundel Gate to Orchard Place or from Furnivall Gate, where the buses at the moment stop, Arundel Gate is 0.3 of a mile and Furnivall Gate is 0.4 of a mile, all uphill. I did write a letter to council. I sent an email to councillors, to 78 councillors. 8 replied, 5 acknowledged that there was a thing, and 2 was non-delivered. I challenged, on the 25th of March, I challenged all those councillors to push my husband from Arundel Gate or Furnivall Gate to Orchard Square. This was not taken up by anyone. As I say, it's... Sorry, I'm not up this. I did receive a reply back from Julie Grocott, which was 12.5 inches long, the email, which didn't say anything really to me at all. It didn't tell me how to get my husband from Arundel Gate to Orchard Square. As with this, I'd like to say that I oppose and I would like the buses brought back, because my husband and I, to go to the bank and that, we go to Leopold Street, get off the bus there, and we come downhill, which is easier for me to push. How long can I push him uphill? I don't know. But that's it. We go to the theatre that way. We go down the moor that way. We go down to Castlegate that way. That is our main stop for stopping to come to town. Without that bus there, forget us coming to Sheffield. We'll have to move everything. So I just say that's how much does that apply to everybody else in this town? How many elderly people are unable to do that? We go to the theatre, Leopold Street, walk down. We stop at the restaurant. That is our custom going from Sheffield. So how many elderly people are in this boat? How many disabled people are in this boat? Sheffield is not disabled friendly. Also, I would love to ride a bike. I would love to use these cycle lanes, but unfortunately, I'm not able, and neither is my husband. So, all I say is, please put the buses back, which will cause less congestion on Arundel Gate and Furnivall Gate, and it's spread out the more fumes. And if they are going to be all electric buses, what's the difference anyway? I'm sorry, I'm not very good at public speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Luxon. I think for somebody who's not doesn't speak in public very often, that was amazing. Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Councillor Johnson to respond to your question.
Well, thank you for coming. That's a very good way of putting the difficulties that you've described there. And as I said before, it's just I actually thought that I had responded to you when you contacted us all last year, because, of course, I was reading your story that you had published in The Star about your trip around town then. So thanks to Councillor Grocott, who did respond to you. So I was just thinking about the trips around town that you have. And I will say, I completely agree that actually it's not a particularly good city centre for getting round if you're disabled. I've had a lot of involvement over the years with the Access Liaison Group, Transport for All, and work with many of my clients because, of course, my background's in disability access work. And it is an issue. That said, of course, no one designs a bus service around one individual person. With any set of changes, there are winners and losers. And of course, when you have wide-scale changes, one of the big issues around people with a whole range of disabilities is about the disruption caused by the change itself, even if all the changes are for an improvement for access in the long run. The other point is, of course, the difficulties about changes in the city centre don't affect the difficulties elsewhere. And when you talk about going around town, of course, it's not just the journey you used to about getting off at the stop on Leopold Street when it was there and going across to Orchard Square. Imagine trying to get down Fargate and that, down to Castlegate, down here, and even down to here, because, of course, today you've got quite a push uphill to get back to the bus stop when you need to get back. The point about the city centre is that there are a lot of things that we need there. You've highlighted the electric bus. One of the things we've been pushing for is the electric freebie bus. And the idea about that, and if you remember a few years ago, there was such a bus circulating around the city centre to try and join up all those bits of bus services that came in. We've been pushing for that. There is actually a bid for funding going into government for that at the moment, so that's really good. And of course, the other thing is we used to have a scheme called Shop Mobility, which was a user-led organisation of disabled people providing a service, which was precisely about the point about people coming to town, whether on bus or by private car, and needing to transfer into wheelchairs, motorised wheelchairs, for getting round the city centre. That service has gone now, and it's something we could certainly benefit from having back, and I've been raising that as an issue too. On the issue of disability access, I mentioned that the disability groups had looked at these specific changes, and at the meeting in June last year when the changes had come in, people were understandably finding those changes a bit difficult, and this was in the height of the pandemic. And there was quite a bit of feedback there. And so we're talking about things like the quality of surfaces, the dropped curbs, the cobbles on Fargate. I mean, actually, cobbled surfaces are really difficult to get over, not just in a wheelchair, but if you have all sorts of mobility difficulties, so if you're ambulant disabled too. Loss of blue badge car parking, though good news is we're getting more of that back in, certainly relative to the parking. Need for public seating, and on cycle lanes, you mentioned cycle lanes. You know, there's a really important aspect from many disabled people's points of view about those being segregated. Segregated cycle lanes are all about safety, and it's not just for people on bikes, it's for people not on bikes as well. And that's why, you know, we really want to see an improvement in the environment in the city centre in particular. I will say, of course, and I've often said this before, when we had the Amy contract, that was such a massive missed opportunity for improving the built environment in the city centre. Instead of just repairing inaccessible curbs and crossings with equally inaccessible curbs and crossings, we could have improved those. They largely weren't in the contract, so those opportunities for gain have been very limited. That's disappointing. The approach that's being taken on the Transforming Cities funding, and this is all about improving the environment, you know, for people in the city centre. That is all about improving the environment. It's not just a transport scheme. It makes it a lot better. And those are up for debate. I know you had your story in the paper a little while ago. I hope you put your comments into the Transforming Cities consultation. I'm sure you've seen it online. You know, lots of people have commented, and there's hundreds of comments in. The clear majority of those people do support the vision for the city centre going forward there. So simply, we can't just reverse, you know, all that opportunity. We can't reverse that ambition, that vision for how the city centre can look. And we can't throw away those opportunities to make the whole built environment there much, much more accessible to people with disabilities. Not just people in wheelchairs, but there are many other people with many other types of disability too. So there is a lot of progress to be done there. What would be really useful, from your point of view, if you want to feed into this, is to have your say on what those plans are going to look like. There is still a lot of work to be done about the detailed design. And, you know, you could certainly help by, you know, talking through that. So, I mean, if you want to leave details with the officers, I'm sure we will have your contact details. If you want to be part of that for the future, then that would be really welcome. So we would happily follow up with that. There you are. Hope that's helpful now. Thanks very much. And, of course, do keep in touch. I might even get round to answering your email next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Please can I ask Sylvia Ashton to come to the microphone, please, and ask Curtis Crossland to stand by.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Sylvia Ashton. I'm used to going first, actually, with a name like Ashton. So. I'm co-chair of the trustees of the Sheffield Association for Voluntary Teaching of English, which is coming up to its 50th birthday. We've been working in Sheffield for a long, long time, and we really know what we're doing. So during the pandemic, we worked with around 400 people, helping them to speak out and be anything like as eloquent as the woman who's just spoken. I thought you were brilliant. My question takes us back to the adult education budget that May spoke about earlier. And the question that I've got is, given that 70% of the referrals that SOPHIE gets for English language support come from Sheffield City Council frontline staff, from very vulnerable people, people often call them hard to reach. I actually like to think that we're finding it hard to reach them rather than the other way around. How does the Council plan to mitigate the negative impact of the recent change to the adult education budget and maintain support to people in desperate need of vital services? May gave you a lot of background about this, about the way that organisations like SOPHIE knit services together. The 400 or so people we've been working with in Sheffield is through the pandemic. We've encouraged digital literacy, and we don't only work with people who come to us for English language support. We have around 200 volunteers, and we trained all of them as well to give digital support. It doesn't fit in the the adult education budget tendering that went on. And what we're looking forward to, and I think May talked about this as well, is an open and trusting relationship with the Council, as mentioned in the one-year plan, to take this forward and enable us to do the work we've been doing for nearly 50 years. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your question. Can I call upon Councillor Turpin, please, the Executive Member, to respond?
Hi, Sylvia. Thanks very much for coming and asking the question. And I spoke to officers about the details of the question, and it was a little unclear. And the basic gist that came out of it, because I don't know, didn't have time to see, and don't know exactly every referral you get, but I do see that it comes from various departments of the council at housing and so on. I'm told that the language support hasn't changed, so hopefully that will be able to continue in much the same way that it was. But like you know, we've arranged a meeting with yourself and your colleagues from your organisation for in a couple of weeks, where we can actually properly discuss the detail, and by that point we'll also know the outcome of the tendering process and see where we're at. And I really have a strong appetite to sort out the relationship that we have with yourself and other organisations that work in your field. And hopefully by having that meeting and ongoing meetings together, we can really repair the relationship and make sure that you're fully supported and fully informed about what will happen in the future. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please call upon Curtis Crossland to come to the microphone, please, and ask his question?
Good afternoon, Lord Mayor and councillors. It's good to see everybody again. So I've got two questions today. The first one, would you be able to give a timescale for the implementation of the 20-mile-per-hour zones in Waterthorpe and Westfield, please? And secondly, thanks to the hard work of lots of local residents in Westfield, we're getting a new children's playground. It will be opposite Shortbrook Primary School. So some parents have raised issues with road safety, especially because of over-eager kids who might happen to run across the road after school. So has the council got access to any additional funding for road safety? I'm particularly thinking about physical changes such as speed bumps or build-outs for the area.
Thank you, Mr. Crossland. May I call upon Councillor Johnson to respond, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Curtis, for questions. So on the Waterthorpe and the Westfield ones, hard to pin down a particular timescale. I've got to note that the implementation of both those schemes are in the current road safety fund. That is the pot of money that's for this sort of thing. They've got to the top of that in the design process. So the delivery and construction will be determined by the cost of the scheme following the completion of the design work and the availability of materials. There's currently a shortage of materials, it says, due to the collapse of a number of supply chains from the pandemic. So it's a bit cryptic, that, but basically we just can't get stuff now. Possibly Brexit's involved too. It's currently being investigated. It's ongoing, and that's in short why it'll be done as soon as it can, in other words. You're asking if the council's got any extra funding. Short answer, no, it hasn't. The road safety budget that is there, it's allocated, and this is no surprise to anyone, on the basis that as locations are prioritised for investment, and basically essentially where's recurring evidence and treatable road safety issue. And it's not specific to certain places. So what it means is that if there's a lot of evidence of instance by a children's playground, then that could be relevant. What is going to be slightly different in this case, though, is because the playground's being built new, if you like, being set up new, and I don't know the details of that, then there could be a change in use there. There won't be a sort of necessarily a recorded history of accidents there. I would hope that's been built into the design of the playground and its environs there. If it, so in other words, I hope that the playground in itself isn't going to be designed in a way that causes an increase in road safety issues, but we'll need to look at that. What is important is that any possible instances are logged with the Police 101 if there's any hint of that happening, so that there is a record there. There you are. No extra money, I'm afraid, but we'll do what we can. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. That concludes this item of business on the agenda. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. I've got another question here from someone. What's his name? I'm sorry, it's very difficult to read. Mr. Rafiq, please come to the microphone and ask your question, and it will be for you.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah? Thank you. Nessa Rafiq, I've come today with Mr. Marshall, care home provider. We help operate a number of care homes in Sheffield on some project with homeless people. For 7 years, we were trying to get increase for care home fees. We didn't get anything more than £1 a year per resident. So after 7 years, we came a petition here 3 years ago, and we were promised that year we got an increase. We came to an agreement with senior people who have left from the council and the council officers and the councillors that in future they would consider our type of cases. If you're on standard fees, this year, for example, last year you got 5.9% to 5%. If you're on non-standard fees, even a penny up or down, we only got less than 1%. And we got told to enter negotiations in January, and now it's almost 6 months into financial year. Every year we get told we're too late in negotiating. So this year we kept all the emails. And the sad thing is, 18 months ago when COVID happened, we were singing and dancing this council's praises and writing letters to everybody. And we still would sing the praises. But unfortunately, the praises and writing letters of support when people worked on COVID ain't going to keep the care home open. We've wrote begging letters. I can give you 42 letters since January. We promised replies. Nobody's interested. So the next alternative we would have to do, if nobody listens to us, we'll carry on hoping the bank gives us extra money or time. Or the risk is our residents will have to come and stop here, not because we want them to, but we're not responsible for that. And it's important because we got told Sheffield Council does not have a policy of wanting people living 50 to care home. We're small care homes, and we want to provide a good service. But how can we provide a service if we're only getting 10 pence a year ride per resident? And we've had to come here yet again, and we've been told certain people on holiday. I've seen them here today, so you can't be on holiday. Or certain people today were embarrassed to see us. But we don't want to be here. I'd rather be spending my time helping the people who've come here today, encouraging them to become the politicians so that we can move over here, and maybe some of you can move over there and give us a chance to show you within the limited budgets things can change. But on the good side with Sheffield, this is one of the best councils when you want democracy, because you're not frightened of giving members of public like us or businesses to come here and challenge you. So that's a positive. But come on, let's try and really make a difference. We would be happy with £15 a week per resident extra. That could make the difference of having to close the service down or not. And we want to pay our staff £15 an hour, but we can't.
Thank you, Mr. Rafiq.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Rafiq, but I must remind you that next time you want to put a question to the Council, you need to give us further notice. I have allowed you to ask your question today, but you need to give us more notice next time, just because of COVID restrictions. Councillor Lindis-Hammond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Rafiq, and everyone else coming today. And it's incumbent on me to say, I am really appreciative of everything you've done at Chamwood and other homes throughout the pandemic. It's been incredibly difficult for everyone, and I think we ought to record as a council our thanks to you for this. As you've explained, you are on what we call non-standard fees for your home. That means it isn't picked up at the moment in our annual process of raising fees. And as you've explained, it's about talking directly with the council and yourselves to raise that. And I want to give you a personal apology that we haven't resolved that for you this year. What I personally think is that we need to move away from that process, and I think you would welcome this, of consistently having to negotiating individually with you. We need to give you certainty. We need to give the council certainty. We need to move the system. What I'm going to make a guarantee today is that in the next 10 days we're going to look at how we can move forward this, get a solution for you that doesn't work just now, but work towards something that works in the long term. So you've got that certainty to look after the residents, to know what you want to do, and we've got that good relationship with you. Because I want a good relationship with you and every other operator of a care home in Sheffield. So I want a personal apology that it hasn't been resolved this year so far, and we will be looking directly into it. We'll be getting the response to you, and we want a long-term, not just a short-term solution for you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. We now move to members' questions, and I will take this one page at a time. So, page 1.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's in relation to question 2 to Councillor Fox. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Fox. Could I ask, is there any intentions of actually speaking to other people who are interested in developing the ski village site, and whether you've actually had any contact with those people since the decision to end the agreement with Extreme Leisure? And if so, has those discussions been positive, or are you just intending to go back out to the open market? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mohammed. Conversations are ongoing, and as always, we're positive of getting a good outcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Question 3. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Fox, that suggests between £400,000 and £500,000 have been spent to date, particularly in commissioning, survey and design work. Could I ask, is there any other cost being incurred by the Council over and above what you've provided me at the moment? Thank you, Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Not that I'm aware of, but obviously I'll find that out just to make sure. But as far as I'm aware, that's the costing that I've received from officers.
Any other questions?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Actually, this is a question for the people just leaving, actually. You might just want to wait. It's in relation to the Pinston Street closure. Councillor Fox, you did mention, I think it was at last meeting, that you preferred to rip up those barriers. The question I have is, just before I came to this meeting, me and Councillor Mohammed Maroof were stopped by a business in and around that area, clearly unhappy with the changes. So my question is, what plans do you have to actually seek the views of members of the public, like what we've just had today, about what they think? Because clearly I've had emails, Councillor Roger Davison's had emails, and Councillor Barbara Masters has had emails from Ecclesall, I'm sure elsewhere. Where do the people of Sheffield fit into this issue around how you get out of it? And I would say to you, Councillor Fox, this is about equality. We can't have a city centre just for the fit and the young. We have to have a city centre like the people that are here, like my mother, who's not going to be able to walk up and down because the bus services aren't stopping outside the town hall anymore. Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Councillor Mohammed, and thank you for reiterating my words. I'm totally with you on this, totally agree. There is a public scrutiny that's taking place, I believe, on the 16th of September. I'll be watching, like I know a lot of the public are who have emailed me, and we eagerly await the outcome of that scrutiny. Councillor Mohammed, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's question 7, but it goes on.
So we're moving on to page 2?
Well, we're on page 2, but it's bottom of page 2 on top of page 3.
Right.
It's about the maintenance. So thank you for telling us how we got there, i.e. a closure of a premier leisure service just before the children's holiday period. But the question that begs the answer is, what's been the frequency of inspections of the mechanical and electrical plant, Councillor Fox? And why weren't these corroded bolts not picked up during these planned inspections, particularly during the closure, why on earth were these only picked up just before our young people were about to start their school holidays? It seems very poor form of the maintenance regime in this building.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As I said before, I came down here, I had a meeting with the Chair, the trustees, the engineers. I also believe that the Cabinet, the Exec Member, Councillor Till's been down here as well. We are fully aware that on opening up the inspection, the rot that was concerned within the slides came from inside out, so it had to be from an internal investigation. The scaffolding had to be. But I understand that the SCT have offered yourselves a meeting. I think it's been a year now. They're waiting for a reply from you. So I think you can ask the questions as well to SCT yourself if you were to meet them. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Any further questions?
Yes, there is actually. Thank you for your answer, and it's in relation to question 10. I note the information given here about the meetings that Sheffield City Council officers and council have had. Can you explain to me, Councillor Fox, why only in July did any elected member from the ruling group actually attend any of these meetings? And can you name which councillor should have attended these meetings? And does this show why maintenance issues, the frequency question I asked you, are being missed? Can you explain why, who should have attended and why have they not attended? And what do you intend to do about it?
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Once we were aware the duties of Councillor Mazar Iqbal was picked up, Councillor Kate MacDonald has gone on as an observer and will be observing those meetings going forward. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Page 4. Page 5.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No doubt colleagues in this chamber will not have gone without notice the huge controversy that the banning of a particular comedian has led to within this city. And the question that begs the answer now, Councillor Fox, is who else are you intending to support the banning of within our city? A yes or no answer. Danny Baker, yes or no? Jimmy Carr, yes or no? Frankie Boyle, yes or no? Ricky Gervais, yes or no? Will they also now be purged as comedians from this city because they're not in keeping with the likes and the tastes of yourself and members of the board at SCT?
Councillor Fox.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just for the avoidance of doubt, I've heard the comments of Councillor Mohammed and I've read the comments of Councillor Mohammed. I'm disappointed in them, but I do appreciate that everybody has a right to an opinion. Just for the so that we are quite clear, SCT cancelled the show of this comedian. We are not in the game for banning, and if a private venue was to uptake the promotion of this, then it would be for them to balance those values off. That is where we stand, and that's where we are. I was asked if I supported the action of SCT, and I did. And that's where the matter ends for me, Lord Mayor. I have made a public statement. We are for an inclusive city, and while ever I've got a voice, I will voice an inclusive city. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor?
Yes,
thank you for your answer around having confidence in SCT to deliver leisure services within Sheffield. Are there any plans to actually test that, whether the people of Sheffield have any confidence in SCT to deliver leisure services? And if so, what plans are there to engage with the people of Sheffield? And I note, Councillor Fox, that you refused to answer the question of which of these comedians, if SCT were to ban, because Jimmy Carr is due to appear late next year, would you actually support him or not?
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think the question was, do you still have confidence in SCT? And what are we doing to do if we ask the people of Sheffield? Obviously, the Chair and the trustees, I believe, have given an offer to meet with Councillor Mohammed over the last, I think it was 12 months ago. Maybe if he took that offer up and then he could have a discussion with trustees and with the Chair, he may be better informed. I have no... It's an independent charity, Lord Mayor. I don't have any control over the running of that charity. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Any further questions on page 5? Move to page 6. Yes, Councillor Masters?
Your answer to question 1, Councillor Fox.
Before you speak, Councillor Masters, if anybody knows that they want to speak, can you indicate to the people with the microphone while she's speaking if you're sat at the other side of the room, please?
It's in relation to answer.
That microphone is not switched on.
It's just not.
Oh, for God's sake.
It won't stay on. Right, it's working now.
In. Yeah.
It says on, but it just doesn't work. Right, comedy of errors. Apologies for that. It's in relation to your answer 1. It doesn't really reassure Councillor Fox. It doesn't answer the question I asked, who will have the upper hand in negotiations over what happens to the city centre? Will it be in line with a yet-to-be-announced city plan, or will now New River tell you what they want in the city plan? I'd like clarity, please.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was going to say, Councillor Masters, you're muted, but obviously it was the wrong type of meeting for that answer. As regarding the negotiations, etc., the city centre plan is coming through. We're hoping, obviously, late on in autumn to have that, and that will be then open for scrutiny across party as well. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Any further questions on page 6? Masters? Yeah, just don't... Try not to keep turning it off.
Barbara, do you want to come up here?
I'll go on to that. Right.
Well, it's working now.
No. Right, try again. Okay, I mean, it is partly in relation to Ponds Forge. You've partially answered that. But basically, sort of, I think it's who was responsible for actually checking the survey, because it should have been conducted way before it was open. The gaps between January 21 and July 21, when anybody who works in these facilities know that corrosion is not always apparent. I mean, I think it's basically sort of, so basically who was responsible for checking and why wasn't it done? I'll give up now.
Councillor Fox. I think it's question 3, isn't it?
Thank you for that, Lord Mayor. I was about to ask. The surveys were undertook on site by engineers and working through. Obviously, it was just in the leisure pool that was reopening up, Lord Mayor. If Councillor Masters needs any more information, if she emails me, I'll get it over to you. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. We're now on page 8. Any questions on page 8? Sorry, I'll repeat that. Is there any Is there any questions on page 8?
Yeah, my question on this is, it's quite a comprehensive response that the leader has given on this, but it seems to be third parties that seem to be promoting the city rather than the City Council themselves. My question was direct, which was how much money has the City, how often has the City Council in the last 5 years campaigned on behalf of Sheffield elsewhere? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Fox.
Pass on that, Lord Mayor. I thought it was comprehensive, but if Councillor Madouf wants to email me the specific details, I will get it. But I did think that was comprehensive enough, but I will get it written over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. We're now on to page 9. Any questions on page 9? Page 10.
Yes, please, Lord Mayor. It's with regard to question 3 on page 10. Thank you very much for your answer, Councillor Fox. And I mean that. Your answer is in marked contrast from your predecessors, when earlier this year he told full council that it was impossible to say how much the council was spending or had spent on the development of the local plan. So thank you for the information. Would it be possible to get a figure for the amount that the council has spent to date since the beginning of work on the local plan? Thank you.
Thanks, Lord. Thanks, Councillor Smith. I've come from a 2.5-hour briefing on the local plan and the amount of detail that goes into that. I will try and look into that question, but the amount of detail that's going into that, and obviously over the next month or so it will be coming round cross-party, so maybe some of them questions you may be able to answer on the rounds as well. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions on page 10? We'll move over to page 11. Councillor Miskell.
Is that working? Yes. Thank you very much to the leader for his work in resettling those fleeing Afghanistan in our city, and it's only right and proper that Sheffield does play a part in providing a safe home for those fleeing the Taliban and their brutality. Given the work that the Council is doing to integrate those families fleeing, does he share my concerns that central government is failing to step up and provide sufficient funding for local government to get the job done properly and support those that we in this country have a duty to protect?
Councillor Fox.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. And first of all, obviously, our heartfelt goes out to the family. I also have to say to the leaders of the opposition parties and to the Green Party, Douglas Johnson, thank you for the way that we conducted those briefings with officers. It was truly kind of together that we could be able to assist where we needed to. And thank you to Councillor Mohammed for helping in assisting with the burial, etc. I fully support. I am in talks with ministers. I am in talks with our MPs, constantly pushing about the wraparound package of support that we need. Sheffield will shoulder its fair share. We are committed at the moment to 26 families. If we can look at shouldering some more, we will. I am attending meetings over the next few days, pushing on ministers to increase that package of support. And I know full well the way that the families at this moment in time feel and are being treated to settle in as best they can. I'd just like to also thank the City for the way that it came together under these horrific events. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Are there any further questions on page 11? We'll move to page 12. Any supplementary questions on page 12? We'll move to page 14. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? You can? That's very good. Right. Thank you very much, first of all, Councillor Turpin, for your answer. What is important now is the next stage, which is where we create the wealth. Where is the industrial breakdown, which is I shall be asking for next month, because I wonder if you will agree with me how much we're earning in exports, how we go forward in developing the supply side of the economy is going to be very important, especially if we're going to satisfy the needs of the extra population that will be coming into Sheffield. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Yeah, I'll ask about the industrial breakdown. Good point, yeah. What I would say on the matter is that we think, you can see from the pattern of how the numbers change here, the makeup of work in Sheffield has changed quite a lot in 20 years. And so we expect that to continue to change, and the climate emergency will have an enormous impact on it. And we talk about 10,000 new climate jobs, and the people don't have the skills for those jobs right now, largely. The companies, the businesses that are going to deliver those services may not exist. But those jobs are there. The potential is there waiting. And so I imagine if we were to look at this in 2030, it would be quite different again. But I'm not sure if that's entirely the question you asked. But certainly regarding the industrial breakdown, I'll send it to you. And if you would like it published, then just feel free to put the question in anyway next month. OK? Thank you.
Thank you. Page 15. Councillor Levery, have you got any questions on page 15? No. Page 16.
Yes, Lord Mayor. I've got 3 questions, and given that Councillor Wood's going to be sending written responses, shall I just do all 3 together? So in relation to question 1, clearly something has gone wrong here, and thank you for your answer in terms of the apology and the investigation. Can you just tell me what the timescales would be in terms of concluding that investigation? Because clearly we need to learn lessons quick. And in relation to question 2, could that investigation look at why on earth it took the original complaint, the 29th of December 2020, that repair team leaders only visited the residents on the 25th, when they've had all these problems for over 6 months of water leaking into the kitchen and living room. And then finally on question 4, it talks about how Housing Plus have tried to visit the gentleman concerned, and there's 3-4 attempts by phones and letters. Could you ask you to review how many other people are in a similar situation where Housing Plus have tried to contact them, and for whatever reasons, the contact attempts have been letter and phone? Because there may well be many other people similar to this gentleman who also got problems. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on page 16? Councillor Tim Huggan.
Page 17. As they say, where there's muck, there's money, and where your close colleague, Councillor Wood, has just said 10,000 new climate jobs, why is it seen as a burden that we want to introduce some recycling, food waste collection, which could potentially create jobs and money for the City Council?
You know that Councillor Woods is going to respond in writing. Okay. The supplementary questions on page 17 that you want to add to the question that you've asked? No? And now on page 18. Is that Councillor Thornton? I can't see you, but I did hear you.
It's just a quick query, really. Thank you, Paul Wood, for your responses. Question 2 and question 3 of mine have the same time frames. I'm assuming the average waiting time and the longest waiting time are not the same, so could that be clarified and got back to me, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further supplementary questions on page 18? Moving on to page 19. Can't see anybody's hands up. Page 20. Page 21. So is that page 20?
Cheers. Thank you, Kate, for your responses. I just wanted to get to the bottom of question 1, where you said that we have an excellent track record as a landlord and have very rarely breached the Homes Act of 2018. For the benefit of anyone in here and any public watching that might not know what the Homes Act of 2018 is, it's the Fitness for Human Habitation Act, which means that rented sector must be fit for human habitation at the time of renting it. I do think that it's quite ironic to say that we've got an excellent track record as a landlord, where if you say we've very rarely breached it, then we clearly have at some point as a council. Now, any breaches to the Fitness for Human Habitation Act as a landlord, I find it bizarre that we're referring to ourselves as a council as excellent landlords as a result. But as you've said here that we've breached it, I'd like to know when we've breached it, how often we've breached it, and any details that you can give me on the cases as to when that happened. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. You'll note from the paper that Councillor Wood is actually leading on this, and he'll give you a written response. Thank you.
I think we're on page 20. No, because there's no questions on those. Oh, yeah. Are we on page 21, everybody, or is it 20? Right. Page 21? No. Page 22. Page 23. Page 24. Page 25. Page 26.
Yes, Lord Mayor. Question to Councillor Johnson. Question 4, Councillor Johnson. I did ask you the similar question to ask Councillor Ward. He gave me a definitive yes. You seem not to have. So, although you share your concerns around SCT and its emergency funding, do you have confidence that that actual organisation can pull our leisure services around, given its track record, particularly what's happened in this building only a few weeks ago in terms of the leisure pool and its lack of maintenance?
Thank you. Yes, I noticed you've asked the same question to me and to Councillor Fox, I think, rather than Councillor Wood, for the obvious fact that we've been openly critical of Sheffield City Trust, or at least the need for an improvement plan. And the point about that is to recognise that actually they're doing a difficult job, our office and the council are doing a difficult job. I'm not involved with it, and I don't have enough details to make a full judgment on that. So I'm in the position where, I want those people to be getting on with the job to the best of their ability, and I'm sure they are doing that, because no one's trying to run facilities into the ground. It is, of course, an immensely difficult thing, and if we were running these services directly as a council instead of them being outsourced, we would be in an equally difficult position of given where we are with this year's the permanent funding crisis that we've had for the last 10 years. So I think that's where we are. I'm sure that every faith in people's ability in doing what they are doing. The fact that we have a chronic problem with things breaking down is something that I guess we need to work through. But as I said, I don't have any involvement with the operational side, so therefore I don't know.
Thank you.
And final one from me, Lord Mayor. It's on page 26, but actually the answer flows onto page 27. So thank you for your answer, Councillor Johnson. I'm particularly interested in the feedback from traders that has been mixed. Could you actually provide me with all the feedback, both positive and negative, about the closures? So as much information as possible in terms of actual comments rather than just a summary. I'm happy to get that in a written form rather than seek it from you right now.
Yeah, well, there's been a big public consultation on it. So I don't think the responses have come out from that yet. I guess they will do, and I guess there'll be those traders who put the comments into there, will be in there. So that's good. I mean, it's worth noting, I think the headline point that is that, the overwhelming majority of people do support the changes that have been brought in so far and want them to continue. But I do know that, I mean, anecdotally, just speaking to some of the traders who are able to be out on the street now, it is actually closing off streets and traffic is the thing that has saved their businesses. A lot of businesses have been really struggling over the last year or two, and before then, of course. You simply, do not succeed as a business if you've got a line of traffic coming past your business. Take that out of the way, and certainly with the hospitality sector that's been massively hit in the pandemic, this is a real boon for them to have, a city centre that people actually want to be in rather than just drive through.
For your information, the business that pulled me and Councillor Maroof up was a hospitality restaurant, and clearly don't share your views.
Questions on page 27. Councillor Huggan.
I was going to ask for question 1, your answer. Did you stick your finger in your mouth and wave it around the air for this answer? Can I have some more detail? And I'm happy to have a written answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have another look at that, see what we can find out.
Page 28. Councillor Huggan.
Can you clarify on my question 3, when 6 months' time, is it from the start of the trial or the end of the trial or any time in between? Can we have a sort of precise sort of date so we can look out for when the 6-month evaluation is given?
Councillor Johnson.
Yes, I'm not entirely sure exactly when we're expecting that. I guess we'll have a look into it. I mean, obviously, there's been a number of experiments, and it's a bit of an ongoing programme there. But, yeah, we'll find that out. The 6 months' time, I think, actually refers to the 6 months that runs from the start of an experimental traffic regulation order coming into force. So it's the statutory basis, if that helps.
Thank you. Page 29. Councillor Auckland.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Johnson, for your answer to my question about the Sheffield parking strategy. Whilst I accept there is a need to reduce the number of journeys undertaken by private motor vehicles, I've read that Green policy is to reduce the number of private vehicles stored on public roads and the reallocation of road space away from car storage, and that full consideration of residents' requests for parking schemes needs to be given. And I'm just wondering what sort of hand he had in that policy, and to what extent, as Cabinet Member now, he wishes to promote it, because it strikes me if I step out into the road for my residents in Graves Park Ward in Woodseats, and there are lots of areas in Sheffield where we've got to accept parking is a problem, and invite them to contemplate a road with all of the space given over to car storage, to walking and cycling, it's a recipe for chaos or demolitions. So how is this policy to be achieved if it is this policy? And how is it compatible with considering requests for residents' parking schemes? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
So, Johnson, before you answer that question, we are running out of time. So if you want to get further questions in, you need to be a bit quicker and more precise. I'm thinking that we'll just continue with you, Councillor Johnson, and then we'll have a break.
In that case, I'll keep it brief. As the point is that you've hit on the nub of dealing with the climate emergency. We all know that private travel contributes massively to global warming. The climate emergency is something we've got to deal with. We all say that we want to improve public transport, walking and cycling. But people have got to realise that, the bus system has been undermined for years in this city and across South Yorkshire by politicians constantly promoting the rights of of private motorists, and also recognise, of course, that for many people they do need to have a car and they need somewhere to put it. That's not the same as saying that if you're lucky enough to have a car, that you automatically have a right for someone else to provide you with parking space. It's a complex issue, isn't it? The really important thing is to get people talking about the issues, about what is their contribution to climate change or to solving it, and also how does it match up with their needs. The real problem with parking is that almost everyone seems to agree that there's too many people parking on the streets and that everyone else should move their cars, but not yourself. And that's always going to be a bit of a problem. So it's one to work through. The interesting point is where we're consulting at the moment. I think the consultation's still open on the Crooks and the Nether Edge low traffic neighbourhood schemes, because that is actually a blank sheet. And the idea about that, and if it works, then it's something to take up in other parts of the city, is to see what people who live there actually propose themselves about dealing with whatever problems they perceive in that area.
Thank you. Page 33. Page 34. 34.
I thank Councillor Teal in advance for the answer that I might receive. But we all know that defibrillators do save lives, and every life is actually very important. Can I have a commitment this would be looked at with due priority? Because for very little cost, we can save many lives, and in some cases, all we need to do is insist that this is taken in terms of a planning application. And I would like a commitment to say that this will be looked at very quickly. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson. Oh, sorry, I've moved on.
Yes, of course. Thank you for raising it.
I'm sorry, folks, we've run out of time. We're now going to take a break. When we come back from the break, that's when I'm going to allow councillors to give their tributes to Councillor Brailsford. So, what time is it? 5 to 4. I want you back, please, for 10 past. Okay, we shall now pay tribute to the former councillor Martin Brailsford, who passed away on the 6th of September, Monday of this week. Martin Brailsford was elected to the City Council on the 16th of February 1995 as a Liberal Democrat councillor to represent the Stocksbridge and Upper Don ward. He was a member of the Cabinet responsible for quality of life in 2000, 2001, and environment in 2001-2002. He was chair of the Development and Environment and Leisure Scrutiny Boards in 2004 and 5, and Culture, Economy and Sustainable Scrutiny and Policy Development Committees, 2008 and 2009 to 2010 and 11. Martin was an amazing, talented young man, not just when he came onto the council, but up until this week. Martin was a breath of fresh air. He was one of our first Liberal Democrat young councillors, and he made a lot of changes. He worked very hard for this city that we're all proud of today. Martin's mother was our deputy leader for the Liberal Democrats, Maureen Brailsford, another amazing councillor. I can't put into words how I feel today when I think about poor Alison and those boys. And I'm happy to pass on to some of my colleagues to pay tribute to a wonderful young man. Councillor SHAFFAQ MOHAMMED.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is really difficult. Like you, I've known Martin nearly 20 years. And, you know, I'm 49, he's 56, or was 56.
And actually, some of you might know that his son, Ewan, was same age as my son, Adel, and often they'd come to the town hall with my kids being there as well. And when I got that phone call from Alison Monday morning, it really knocked me out. And so Tuesday morning, it shows how much I'm got my head right now, because I was due to meet with Penny and Tim, I think Joe Watson and others. And it's a huge tragedy, because he was a fantastic councillor, but more importantly, he was a fantastic individual that cared passionately for his area. And he was only badgering me a couple of weeks ago to say, I've got my thank you leaflets out, where's my residence survey, I'm itching to go out. I know you've got them in the office, can you get them sorted? And ironically, we have got 2,000 residence surveys from Martin Brelsford sat in the office, and it was only a matter of time for me to call him to come and fetch him. But he was passionate about his area, Stocksbridge, and I'll be honest with you, he was pretty forthright. When we got things wrong, he never hid his displeasure. He would say it, but he was, like the Lord Mayor said, he was incredibly talented, young, and absolutely devastated for Alison and the boys. His dad passed away, similar age. Maureen passed away as well, in her 50s, and it's a huge tragedy and a huge loss for the family, but also for the community of Stocksbridge. Someone like Martin, who's always been active, supported his wife as well, Alison, on the town council as well as on the city council. And I thought it would have been a massive positive contribution to this council, hence why I was so grateful when he decided to stand again this year, and he was really up for standing again. And I want to pay tribute to him, and absolutely want to thank all the colleagues from different sides of this council chamber who've been in touch and passed on messages of support. I spoke to Alison, I was in contact with her this morning as well. As and when the funeral arrangements, I'm sure we will advertise those via email, and I'm sure lots of colleagues will want to come and pay tribute to a very close friend of all of ours who's gone too early. He had so much to offer our city, and may he rest in peace. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sango.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was just shocked to hear the news of Martin's death, and my heart goes out to Alison and their sons, Ewan and William. I've known Martin since he was elected, as we just heard from the Lord Mayor, elected in a by-election in 1995 following the very tragic early death of our former group leader, Councillor David Chadwick. And as we've just heard from SHAFFAQ, the fact that we were there when Maureen died and some of us were there when Malcolm died, it all feels very difficult. But Martin was a valued colleague for many years, from 1995 to when he lost in 2011. And as I say, we made efforts to reach back out to him and get him to stand this year, and he really put some work in and really wanted to get back to representing the people of Stocksbridge, not just in terms of the town council, but also on the city council. So just feel shocked that he'd made such an effort and worked so hard, and then for it all to be taken away like this with this news. I think the main stories I would have with Martin would be our years, obviously, on the executive, the executive together, in terms of the shadow executive in 97, 98, getting ready to challenge Labour for control of the council. But then in those first 3 years we had as a Lib Dem administration, and Martin had some really important tasks. So he had the task of revitalising parks across the city. I mean, sport and leisure were a big part of what Martin stood for, and trying to get all of our parks up to a great standard was something that Martin really stood for and drove forward, and wouldn't take no from an answer from officers who said no, we can't do that. But also, probably more controversially in this place, I will be controversial because Martin wouldn't shy away from controversy, but finding a solution, finding a public-private partnership solution for waste collection and disposal. Martin was up for that fight and up for getting a solution that was right for the people of Sheffield. And I suppose the other thing was working with the Blair government. I mean, it's a long time ago, but the Blair, we were a Lib Dem administration. We had to work with the Labour government of the day and made sure that Sheffield and England's Institute of Sport came into the city, and those are two parts of this two facilities for this city we're very proud of, and we as an administration brought that in, and that was, because Martin made sure that was driven through, irrespective of the issues we'd had with the previous funding of sports facilities. We knew we had a good working relationship with the government, and we needed to get that through. So lots of memories of Martin as a friend, and obviously working with closely with Alison, who I've known since our days in student politics together, which is even further ago than the time I've known Martin. And then obviously, my son's the same age as my children, the same age as you, and we were here for Ewan's accident and all of that. So the idea that we're now having to speak about Martin, I'm finding it very difficult. But Martin you always knew where you stood with Martin. He was clearly, he knew his wider Sheffield politics, but he knew that he came from Stocksbridge, and Stocksbridge was a separate town with separate needs to the rest of Sheffield, and he would always speak up for Stocksbridge and Deepcar and Bolsterstone and that part of the city. But as I say, he was a robust operator in this place. He gave strong speeches. He was a good public speaker. He was combative in debate in this council chamber, but he was also combative in group, not just fighting for people of Stocksbridge and Deepcar, but also for his liberal principles and what he saw as the right approach for the whole of Sheffield. So Lord Mayor, to conclude, I'd just like to, make sure that we keep Alison and the whole family in our thoughts at this time. It's very difficult, but we will, as soon as we get the details of the funeral, we'll let people know. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Andy. Terry.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I hadn't been on council very long when I got to know Maureen, and obviously Maureen was I believe, the deputy leader at that time, and a very powerful lady, a very powerful orator, but always had the heart of Sheffield. Martin, actually I shadowed Martin, and then when we came back in power, Martin shadowed me, and we had a number of knockabouts. But you could always be sure that after a meeting or just before a meeting, he would give you wide counsel, he would give you some wise words, and he did have the art of the city within him. He also, within Stocksbridge, I believe he was on the town council, he'd been around the number of positions out in Stocksbridge, and always fought hard for that. And then Alison, obviously our thoughts and prayers go to Alison and the family for this sudden loss. That, I mean, obviously, how you take you, we become comrades, we become part of each other's family. So to get that grief in there and such a sudden loss, it really does straight to the core. But I think, for me, listening to some powerful speeches from the Lib Dem side, who really knew Martin really deeply, and listening to how it affects, then obviously it touches a lot of people. But for me, my recollection of Martin was really kind of one of my first public meetings, and it was a meeting of RAT, Ranmore Against the Tram meeting, and Martin attended that with me, and was in the audience, and as obviously as politicians know, not being controversial as ever, but obviously having to take some of them questions. Martin's humour kind of shone through on some of those questions that he was pointed at us. Obviously, it's sad to hear, Lord Mayor, and our as I say, our thoughts and prayers go to Alison and the family. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Terry. Colin Ross.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think what's particularly poignant about this is that when we paid tributes to former colleagues who sadly died, it's often a long time ago, and elderly colleagues. What is poignant about this one is Martin was certainly younger than me and younger than many of us in this council, was a recent serving member of the council, and we had, as has been said, great hopes of actually returning to serve and represent the people of Stocksbridge and Upper Dun in the forthcoming election next May. The Brailsfords were something of a dynasty in Stocksbridge, with both Maureen and the father and Alison, all being part of it. And I've had the privilege of working alongside all of those people. In fact, for a number of years, I shared one of the small benches in the town hall in council meetings with Alison, and I fondly remember going to their wedding reception in Cutlers Hall, and it doesn't seem that long ago actually, but then when you realise it was quite a few years ago, and you realise how old their boys were now. So there's nothing really further to add about the qualities of Martin. That's already been said. He could be irascible. He was forthright in his views, but he was always a good bloke to know and to get on with, even when you had disagreements. And he did fall out with us over the coalition and various things like that. And we're really, really pleased that when he came back into the fold and we're able to work together. This is a great tragedy, clearly, for the family, Alison and the boys. It's a great loss for all those who know them, but it's a great loss as well to the community of Stocksbridge, because over the years, as he's worked in the town council as well as the city council, he's done so much for that community, as well as the wider Sheffield, when he was carrying responsibility as cabinet members as well. I will miss him greatly. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Oakland.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've got to say, when Penny rang us with the news and spoke to me, I was absolutely stunned to hear it. Taken too soon is a phrase that we will use about somebody who has sadly passed away, but we can't really be equal to those circumstances, because life has a rhythm, and we expect to live that rhythm, most of us. So it's particularly awful for a young family to lose somebody. And what I find so, frankly, it's disturbing, as well as feeling it so much for Alison and the boys, is it's a round of tragedy for this family, because every one of those were taken too soon. That phrase can be put rightly at their door and at their memory. So it comes as so hard. But as everyone else has said so far, I mean, Martin and the Brailsfords had Maureen, the husband, had a wonderful record of service to Stocksbridge and the wider Sheffield community. And as Colin Ross has just mentioned, he stuck to his guns, sometimes in really difficult circumstances. And the coalition, when we discussed as a group the coalition, and we all had various things to say, Martin was the one person in that room who said, I'm having nothing to do with this, it's going to end in tears, and I'm in it. And that could be typical of his view, and who knows, perhaps as we have kicked this subject around in this room and in the council chamber and in notices of motion even today, who knows, perhaps that spirit of liberal non-conformity had some merit, some would say. So I will miss him greatly, and I can only hope that we can offer what support we're able to Alison and the rest of the family. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Brian Lodge.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It was such a shock. I got a message through from Councillor Davison's wife, my sister, that let me know. And it was such a shock to hear that Martin had passed away. And Martin was on the council when I came on. And his mother, Maureen, was on. It was in that first year that I was a councillor that Maureen passed away. But it was always that dynasty that was in there. As many people have said, you felt there was that dynasty of the Brailsfords that was there. And there was a thread running through. But I always remember Martin. I served as his deputy on some of the scrutiny boards. And he was he chaired the meetings without fear or favour. It didn't matter which party you were from. And Councillor Clement Jones may remember that there was we were giving him a particularly tough time and a grilling. And officers were trying to, and we said, no, Councillor, we want Councillor Clement Jones to answer the question. And he looked across at Martin to sort of say, you know, give me a bit of protection type thing, because we were giving him a tough time, and Martin went, you're on your own. And that was what he was like. You'd have, for members of the public who may be watching this, who maybe see what happens in the chamber, we have the knockabout stuff, we have the backwards and forwards, and you can have some forthright views and some good, strong debates and passionate, but when you walk away from here, you're all walking away as friends, and you're all walking away and chatting. And Martin was always a gentleman, he was always professional, he was always polite, and it was such a pleasure, really, to say that you knew him. And it's quite sad looking around in the chamber to see so few of us now, and I think you start looking and thinking, maybe I'm getting a bit old now, and perhaps it's time for me to move on. When you look around and you see there are so few people in here now that served with Martin, with Alison, and with Maureen. It's such a shame, and to be so young. And, you know, I don't know the boys, but my heart goes out to them because I understand what it's like. My father died when I was young, and you never get over it, but it gets easier. And just pass on my best wishes to Alison and the family. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for that, Brian. Can I ask Chris Rosalind Joseph and then Alan Hooper?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and if you forgive me for not standing. I've listened to what has been said about Martin. I came on in '95, and we shared a number of committees over the years together. And I want to just give a recollection of something that happened away from the town hall, because we both had an interest in music and cricket. But this particular night, we were together, and it was the Oscars night when the Full Monty was up for its nominations. And we were invited to go to the old Asda's at Handsworth, where they'd done some of the filming. And it was a free bar. And I said to Martin, look, we're professional councillors, we're good politicians, we'll not abuse this. No, he says, we will not abuse this. Every time he went to get a drink, he made sure I got one. Now, I wasn't driving, my wife was. And I said to Martin, I said, are you driving? He says, no. So every time I went to the bar, I made sure he had one. I'm not sure how much we had to drink, but Martin suddenly started telling jokes. I don't know if you knew this, but he would come out with these stories. And I was in agony with laughing because he was so humorous. He was great to be with in social situations. My heart goes out to his family. He was a great guy to be with. I think he is a loss to the city and to politics in general, because I believe he had a lot more to give. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Joseph. I'm going to make this the last one. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As a councillor from the north of Sheffield, we were close to Stocksbridge and the Brailsfords. My first involvement with politics and with Martin and Alison was at their wedding. It wasn't me that got invited. I wasn't a Lib Dem. I wasn't a politician at that time. But my wife was a council officer and friends of them. And I was invited as a husband. From then on, that was 1997, as Colin has alluded to, the wedding at the Cutlers Hall. From then on, I became closely involved to being elected to Parish Council in 1999, then City Council in 2004. But regarding Alison and Martin, the friends of lots of people, serving Stocksbridge excellently. We used to hold our North branch meetings in Martin and Alison's kitchen in an evening, and there'd be always a bit of food there and some drink if required. But that was the nature. But sadly missed. I found out yesterday, my wife was with me, and we both just sat down and couldn't believe it, because what's happened before with Martin's mum. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, I'm sorry, I did have a piece of paper asking that you would speak, so if you'd like to speak.
Well, thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to add a very few short words. I can't say that I really knew Martin, but I do recall from the time when I was working in Stocksbridge a bit, and he was a new councillor then, and he struck me as very different from what I perceived as being councillors of that time. Basically, he was young, he was about 30 then, and councillors were mostly pretty old. Obviously, that's changed now. But he was young and dynamic, and he did come across as someone who was quite businesslike, really, and possibly somewhat emotional. And I really admire the emotion that's coming out from the tributes of people who really knew him well. And as I say, I don't promise to outbend him at all, but I just knew of him in that sense. It's clear that he was quite a force to be reckoned with. And what struck me also was, I think that was the time, and someone correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was the time when all three councillors in Stocksbridge had the same surname, and Colin's mentioned the dynasty there. People who don't know Stocksbridge don't realise just how strong a community it is. And it's actually, as a young man then, it's a big thing to put himself forward for that community service, which of course is what we all do. Sometimes you wonder why. Ultimately, I hope we know why. And I think Martin did know that, and he really knew the value of that. So I was shocked to hear his death, because my immediate reaction was, but he wasn't old. He was only a few years older than me. And so I am really sorry to hear that, and I'm especially sorry to hear of just the deep and meaningful impact that it has had on a lot of people who are here today. So sympathies with everyone who's affected by his passing.
Thank you very much, councillors, for those lovely tributes, and I hope at some point when she can, Alison will have a look and listen to all the kind things that you've said about Martin. So we now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the notice of motion regarding housing, the local plan. There is a maximum time of 25 minutes for this item. Can I call on Councillor Martin Smith to move the motion? You can speak for up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and it's quite difficult to follow that. So the local plan. Delay after delay after delay has left this city in a seriously bad position. After 9 years of work, it's still not finished. The city's become increasingly defenceless against inappropriate developments, and it's got so bad that even property developers are unhappy at the lack of clarity they're getting from the council. But the biggest problem of all, in my mind, is that the council, in the absence of a local plan, has no overarching plan to address the chronic shortage of good quality housing in Sheffield. We've seen the numbers, and they really are quite dramatic. Now, this shortage is particularly difficult for young people, with the shortage of good quality, affordable housing. And as a father of a son and daughter in their 20s, I've seen the impact that can have on young people's lives, albeit in a different local authority. I'm keeping it brief, Lord Mayor. I'm hoping for a good-natured and serious debate today. From the amendments, I suspect we have a lot in common across all the groups. But where I suspect we may differ is in the level of urgency required. The local plan could have and should have been put to bed years ago. So please, no more delays, no more excuses. Let's crack on with it and set clear targets for how and when the local plan is going to be finished. Lord Mayor, I propose a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. When I call on Councillor SHAFFAQ Mohammed to second the motion, you must speak up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I echo the concerns of Councillor Smith in the sense that this issue for too long has been kicked into the long grass. Every time we've asked questions, we are told the plan is imminent. I was even told that actually the plan was going to go to a cabinet meeting. When we then called it in for shadow cabinet, I was then told, oh, actually, it may well be now a cabinet member decision. And then when I constantly quizzed the chief exec at the time, John Mothersall, about where are we with the local plan, his constant feedback to me was, it's been done, we've done the work as officers, it's sat on the leaders' table to sign off. And that's what's been the problem. For too long, it's been sat on somebody's table, and we have ended up in a situation that communities are now seeing inappropriate developments being pushed through because of a lack of a local plan. And the obvious example is what happened in Deepcar. We've just been talking about Martin earlier. It's something I visited with Martin. The Hollinbusk area in Deepcar, you know, the planning board here supported the residents and actually turned down this development. And what we've ended up with is actually the planning inspector ruling against the council because we didn't have a local plan which showed we had a supply of housing. This is only going to get worse for us, and that's why I support Councillor Smith in his attempts to say enough of delays, let's get the plan sorted. Now, we had some consultation. The people of Sheffield were very clear in terms of option A in 2020. That's what they want in the issues and options consultation. So let's get this plan within the next 6 months published so we can actually have a plan going forward for the next 20 years, and what we don't have is this inappropriate development being granted because we don't have the local plan, like in the case of Hollinbusk. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. There are 3 proposed amendments, and these are numbers 1, 2 and 3 on this list of amendments circulated at this meeting. I now call upon Councillor Grocrott to move amendment number 1. You may speak up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the Liberal Democrats for bringing this motion today. I think it would be timely to give an update on where we are with the local plan, given this motion. The Council are working very hard at the moment putting together a spatial strategy and a city centre plan. There are plans to take these to the individual groups for members to look at and scrutinise with a view to the proposals appearing at the Co-op Executive in October. So things are moving. I think it's important that when we do get the plan out, we have proper consultation across the whole of the city. The people of Sheffield have been really clear to us in this last 12 months that they want to be involved in how we change our city, how we make it work, how we make sure that we build the right houses of the right sort in the right places to have a vibrant communities across the whole of the city. Of course, there is the hiccup in the plan, in that the government, without any science, rhyme or reason, have upped the figure of housing that we have to produce by 35%, which has been a contributory factor in the planning decision that went against us at Hollingbusk, and no one as a local resident is more disappointed in that than myself. So there is a lot of work that is being done. The plan is coming, and what we want to do as Sheffield people is make sure that the whole of the city can be engaged, can come together in the consultation. And I think that, as Martin said when he proposed the motion, we do have a lot in common. It's time now to start working together in good faith, put the past behind us, stop using the local plan, people's homes, people's communities as a political football, and start working together for the good of this city so that we can have communities that everyone wants to live in and enjoy. I formally move the amendment, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grocott. I now call upon Councillor Mark Jones to second this amendment, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Carrying on in the sombre mode and the sensible mode that we've adopted, following the comments on our former colleague, who's now passed away far too early. I didn't know the man, but what I've heard clearly is that all people in here, and all people in here recognise the sincerity of all other members in here, we all put Sheffield first. We all want to make sure that we get a local plan that works for Sheffield and the citizens of Sheffield. We want to make sure we sincerely care about this city. And I accept the comments from Martin that we all need to move this forward properly. I particularly welcome this motion. I particularly welcome the spatial element that's within the motion here. We have not had a spatial plan for Sheffield for far too long, and that cuts across all administrations, not just this current one or Labour administrations, and this is something that we need to recognise. We do not, in this chamber, any of us, I believe, want to build on Greenbelt, and that's a real issue that we face right now. I do not believe that any of us want to see our green buffer, our lungs, deteriorated. We've heard from many people about the issues that we're facing about climate change. We've had it here today from petitioners. We cannot erode one of the significant buffers we have against climate change by building new houses on that. We simply can't do that. And we have heard also from Councillor Davidson earlier about the wealth creation that this city will need going forward. The impromptu imposition of a 35% uplift in the number of houses that Sheffield needs by the central government does not take into account the need for jobs or how those families are going to put food on tables and where they're going to work. That needs addressing. So I would call on everyone here in this chamber to support our motion, which is not deletive of the Lib Dem motion, to make sure that we send a strong message to government that they cannot just dump houses on us, and that we do need a local plan that works for Sheffield, Councillor. And Sheffield first. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now call upon Councillor Brian Holmeshaw to move amendment number 2. Can I tell you that this is Councillor Holmeshaw's maiden speech, so please be kind.
Lord Mayor? Lord Mayor? It is working. Lord Mayor and fellow councillors, I have just had to make a few changes to my speech to take account of PERDA, as was mentioned, to make sure it's covered PERDA, as was said earlier. So let me start with saying that as a political party, we have consistently opposed some damaging and short-sighted government planning laws since their introduction 9 years ago. The government themselves admit that they're working, and we are all working, within a housing market that is broken. As local councillors, we were elected by our local communities to stand up for their interests, and we cannot risk seeing local decisions being thrown to the wayside for failing to secure the best that we can in the circumstances, and I'm sure we would all agree on that. The government uses a language of freedom and of opening up planning to choice, but they use the tools of centralisation and control. It's clear that 40,000 new homes is an arbitrary figure that's been plucked out of the air. Far more important are the 40,000 people reported in the Sheffield Star in January 2020, the 40,000 people on the council house waiting list, a third of which are in desperate need. For me, being on planning committee, it's become clear that the National Planning Policy Framework is a cliché. It's the developer's charter. What a cliché that is. Whereby a Conservative government is forcing councils to grant permission to developments regardless of their suitability or level of affordability. And we ask that government decentralise some of the decisions about planning to the elected representatives of our area. And at local level, we ask that planning restrictions are strengthened in the local plan as per last year's Green View 2020 document. It's good to see in the motion that the proposers of the motion have read this document and are taking note of the strength and validity of our arguments in favour of greater central density, but coupled with higher open space and environmental standards at the same time. One thing that we urge all councillors here today to do is to vote for L in our amendment, where we recommend that affordable free zone in the city centre for developers is removed. I think this is a damaging piece of local legislation that needs removing. It's encouraged developers to come in and to ruin our city centre with tiny, poor quality, but expensive flat complexes that only reach out to a small section of the population. We need genuinely mixed communities in our city centre, serviced by local shops and rich in local green space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmeshaw. And congratulations on your maiden speech. May I call upon Councillor Douglas Johnson to second that amendment, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Congratulations, first of all, to Councillor Holmeshaw. Excellent first speech in the Council chamber. Climate emergencies completely altered the way that we need to see city growth and infrastructure. Cities account for 62% of all the UK's carbon emissions through this concentration of buildings and energy usage and transport. So we want to identify those policies here that tackle the climate emergency, those policies that raise the standards of design, raise the standards of development and the quality of life of people in Sheffield. We want to see those policies that improve health and job opportunities, provide homes which are accessible and, as Councillor Holmeshaw says, more affordable. We believe in homes that are fit to live in an environment that's fit to work in for many decades to come, and that's the importance of the local plan. So there is a need for new infrastructure in housing and industrial areas and commercial land and social facilities in local communities. But traditionally, this increase has meant increasing the work-to-home travel time. It's meant expanding the geographical extent of the city, typically sprawling out into the suburbs. And this is really dangerous because this is what worsens carbon emissions. It also worsens health inequalities, and commuting is pretty miserable. So that's no good for anyone. So we need to address that, and that's what there is a chance to do in this local plan, and we therefore need it as soon as possible. So urban planning balances many competing interests, and not least those of property against society. But in this, community engagement in planning and development is really key. This will mitigate the tensions and conflicts that arise when you're balancing up those social and economic and environmental concerns on each development. And it's important to get it right, because as has been said, it's for decades to come. So that balance can mean that we need good standards of sustainability and the climate change-related considerations. We've got to make sure those don't prevent development happening at all. Thanks, I'll wrap up. it's a reason. There is not a reason to foist substandard housing on future generations. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
May I call upon Councillor Sophie Thornton to move amendment number 3. You may also speak for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And congratulations, Councillor Holmeshaw, on your first speech. Our amendment notes that we do have the options to deliver our housing forecast whilst protecting the green belt, and that we do have areas such as Attercliffe that would be excellent sites for redevelopment. And any further delays to this will just kick it into the long grass. Now, I would like, as a young person, to get on the housing ladder whilst I'm still in my 20s, but like so many young other people, we feel that is increasingly out of reach. A colleague of mine at my other job has been trying for years, and ultimately, every time she gets to, final and last offers, people are overbidding by, £10,000 to £15,000 because the housing supply in this city is so low that the houses are just going like that. Now, we are known as Generation Rent, and it goes much further than us just being unable to own our own homes. It goes to us paying rent to pay other people's mortgages for potentially the rest of our lives. It's spending our savings on an expensive rental sector. We're going to grow older and need care with little or no cash and assets to fund it. And we're going to be unable to leave our future generations in a better place than when we started. Now, councillors, this local plan has been in development since I was a teenager. And I don't think that Councillor Groker is political football to point that out. If you fail to plan, then you're going to plan to fail Sheffield's young people who are wanting to get on the housing ladder. And you're going to face a crisis in care as we get older. Please can you support this motion and this amendment and get this over and done with? Thank you.
May I call on Councillor Mohammed Maroof to second this amendment, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, congratulations to Councillor Holmeshaw for his maiden speech. Excellent. I think we all recognise that housing is an absolute emergency in Sheffield. We need over 40,000 new homes, 3,000 annually, the number rising obviously on a daily basis. With thousands on the social housing list, many people are either living in cramped accommodation or sofa surfing, the young being disproportionately affected. Many years ago, when I was around 7 or 8, our house was CPO'd. I used to pop down to the newsagents on Attercliffe Road on a Saturday morning and pick up a Sheffield Telegraph and look at the properties that we could afford to move into. Lord Mayor, let me share a statistic with the Chamber today. In the 70s, a 2-up, 2-down house in Pagehole was around £4,000, as was a house in Sharravale and Crooks. Fast forward to 2021, there is a house on the market in Pagehole at £25,000 and at Sharravale and Crooks £250,000. This week in the Sunday Times, it was reported that the S10 postcode is the second hottest property spot in the country, particularly Crooks. What I'm trying to get at here is we have a north-south divide in the city and a broken housing market which needs levelling out. Let me now take you to an area where we can deliver 2,500 homes immediately, an area which has excellent public transport system, including Supertram, a new school for 5 to 18-year-olds, medical and pharmacy facilities, industry and retail and job opportunities. Above all, we have brownfield sites for immediate development. The area I'm talking about is Attercliffe, which is devoid of people, but rich in infrastructure. And looking around the chamber now, I think quite a few of us have connections with Attercliffe. I propose we instruct officers to set up a task and finish group immediately working with elected members, if need be using CPO powers, and people who are not aware of CPO powers, that's compulsory purchase order, to progress the delivery of the waterside, development of 700 homes immediately. And if the developers can't deliver, ask them to step aside. Delivery of effective housing policy in Attercliffe will have a knock-on effect in Darnell, Grimesthorpe and Pagehole. I believe the people of this city need housing as a basic human need, and if we in this chamber do not deliver them, we have failed and should be ashamed. Lord Mayor, we are in a housing emergency situation in Sheffield and we need a local plan. Thank you.
We are now going to move to the debate on the matter. May I remind members seated on the floor that when you are invited to speak, if you could assist by standing so that you can easily be seen by staff delivering the microphones. Thank you. The first person is Councillor Baker.
Lord Mayor, did you say me? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Okay, apologies. Can I start by congratulating Councillor Humshaw on his maiden speech? Always a hard thing to do. Great to have it out of the way. Well done. The council needs certain basic tools to be able to do its job, to be able to fulfil its responsibilities. And one of those has to be a local plan. A lot of people believe that it's just spatial, and as you all know, it's not. It's not just what homes you put where, but it's what accessibility have, what sustainability have, what the city needs in the ways it needs to develop in retail, industrial, and with the changes in the climate, possibly things like open green spaces that we all talk about quite a lot. Without, as has been said, without a local plan, it leaves us open to planning objections. And Martin must be still impacting on the council even today, because I'm also thinking about Holland's Bus Lane in Deepcar, and remembering some years ago going out with my then councillor husband to meet with Martin to look at the area when we were fighting a planning app out there, which luckily in those days we succeeded. But one of the things that's meant that we have failed on this count and houses will be built on that open green space is the lack of a local plan. I really respect the feeling that people are saying, yes, we must get on and have a local plan, and we will do it now, and we will get it going. But with respect, when you look at, as I have here, copies of the questions put to Council 2 years ago on the 4th of September, when I asked the then leader of the Council, when will Sheffield new local plan be published? The answer I got was the new local development scheme will be published in the autumn. Well, I think it's obvious why we're concerned. No more delays. We need a local plan. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Lodge. Next person I'll be calling is Councillor Shaw and then Councillor Chin Chan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It came a bit quicker than I thought there. We all need a local plan. Everybody accepts and we need the local plan, and we need to define the areas for the development across the city. We've seen a lot of development in certain parts of the city more than in others. I was born in Hackenthorpe. I look around at a number of councillors that live out in the south-east. Lord Mayor, you live out in the south-east, and we look at all the development that's taking place. I remember when Owlthorpe and Waterthorpe and all the areas out there in Crystal Peaks were all fields, and we've seen development that goes on. At that time, there were people who objected to the development of those fields that were out there as green and open space, but we recognise that we need housing, and we have to have housing. So sometimes there are difficult decisions to be made. But I think we have to be honest, and I think it's the honesty that is lacking amongst people which upsets members of the public. And we've seen a lot of things, and forgive me for raising this, but Owlthorpe Fields was in there as part of the plans and the proposals in the Lib Dem document from 2010 that the Cabinet signed off that put forward Owlthorpe Fields. And yet there's been a sustained campaign by members of the Lib Dems in that area against the housing that goes on there. So I think this is where the dishonesty that comes about in things, and the confusion that arises from taking a stance and putting the papers through there, the Lib Dem Cabinet in May 2010, which they then stand there and speak against it. And part of the reason why the planning appeal went through against the planning board rejecting it was because it was one of the proposals for housing that was put forward by the Lib Dems in the consultation document in 2010. I've got the maps and things here if people want to see them. But we also have to be a bit consistent in other things and do. We heard earlier on this afternoon Councillor SHAFFAQ Mohammed calling and saying about asking questions about the decision to get rid of Extreme when they're not moving forward with things and questioning that decision and almost critical. And then we have Councillor Mohammed Maroof saying we should be kicking out the developer in Attercliffe because they're not moving on. We need to be consistent. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, can I ask you to be quick, please, because we are running out of time.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try to be brief. A lot of people have covered a lot of things already. I'm sure we all agree that there is a housing crisis in the UK and in Sheffield. We desperately need homes for families, for younger people, for older people to downsize into. We need the infrastructure, sustainable infrastructure, for transport, for schools, in order for people to, well, live in those homes and get to where they need to be. We need access to green spaces, both within the city and nearby. But we can't afford for basically relying on the whims of developers that might build the wrong mix of housing in the wrong places and without the right infrastructure. And that's why we need a local plan as soon as possible. And since long before I was a councillor, the administration's been kicking this issue down the road time after time. Some might observe conveniently after the next set of elections. Now, I appreciate that adopting a local plan might be, to use the phrase of Yes Minister, courageous. But if we don't have the courage to take these decisions now by adopting a local plan as soon as possible, then how are we going to have the courage to make decisions about some things that are going to be really contentious, like the measures we're going to have to adopt as a city to become carbon neutral, for instance? Those are going to be some seriously hard decisions. And this, publishing a local plan is relatively minor in comparison. So let's have some courage, let's get it done, and stop kicking the can down the road. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for being so quick. Councillor Chinchan, and you will be the last speaker on this subject.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and may I congratulate Councillor Holmeshaw for his maiden speech. Getting a draft local plan and consulting on it needs to happen as soon as possible. We have seen inappropriate developments in too many parts of the city, including in my ward at Holland Busk. And whilst we continue to be without a local plan and the clarity that provides, significant amounts of taxpayers' money are spent on planning appeal costs. We, of course, need to build more homes and encourage people to aspire to home ownership. A successful and dynamic economy requires homes to be built. And if we want to be fair to all generations, including our young people, then we need to ensure that they get the same opportunities which have been available in the past. But despite all of that, new homes must be built in the right areas, and some sites are obviously wholly inappropriate for development. A comprehensive local plan which puts the priorities of the people of Sheffield first will help protect unsuitable sites. But we need to stop delaying and start doing. Consultation on a draft plan was set to begin in July, and this has obviously not happened. My concern is that the more deadlines that are missed, the more the target completion date of 2023 is put in jeopardy. So we need to be consulting with the relevant parties as soon as possible and then get the draft local plan out for full public consultation as a matter of urgency, and that is the way we will protect unsuitable sites from development in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Martin Smith, you have the right to reply and you have 2 minutes.
I'll be brief, Lord Mayor, thank you. Congratulations to Councillor Holmeshaw on his maiden speech. I'm sure there are lots more to come. I want to thank everybody contributing to the debate. Most have been restrained. I want to thank in particular Councillors Thornton, Chinchin and Shaw, because it's their generation that's going to have to pick up the pieces on this. My generation have had it easy. As Councillor Thornton said, their generation is having problems that we never had, and it's within our gift not to solve all of the problems, but to solve some of them. Councillor Lodge talked about honesty. when so many targets and so many deadlines have been promised before, and so many targets and so many deadlines have been missed, I would argue that is damaging the credibility of the whole council. And that's why I propose this motion. I support the Lib Dem amendment. We need to have clear targets and clear deadlines that everybody can sign up to. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'm now going to move to the vote on Amendment 1, moved by Councillor Julie Grocott. All those in favour of Amendment 1, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry. Voting in parts. Sorry, I missed that line. Have we got that? Okay, all those... any more voting in parts? Yeah, can we have the microphone, please? Might be quicker for you to stand up and use the one in front.
Lord Mayor, shall I just say it?
Yes,
loud?
yeah, please do.
In voting for the amendment, we won't be voting to delete Part D. Is that okay?
All those in favour of Amendment 1, please raise your hands now. Thank you. All those against? Thank you. So that's carried, but not with the deletion of D. Sorry, somebody speaking? I'm now going to move the vote on Amendment 2, moved by Councillor Holmeshaw. Are members happy to vote on this amendment as a whole or in each separate paragraph? Yes, Councillor Otten.
In voting for, will be abstaining on J and L.
Thank you. All those in favour of Amendment 2, please raise your hands. That is clearly carried. Thank you. I keep getting it wrong with button on microphone. I'm now going to move to the vote on Amendment number 3, moved by Councillor Thornton. All those in favour?
Lord Mayor, record a vote, please.
So we're going to have a recorded vote on that. Okay, can we not have argument across the room, please, when we're going to try and concentrate on this recorded vote? Yes, thank you, Gillian.
The Lord Mayor, Councillor Gail Smith.
No vote.
Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Shonard Meyer Richards.
Against.
Simon Clement Jones.
For.
Richard Shaw. Sophie Thornton. Bob McCann. Chris Rosling-Josephs. Anne Woolhouse. Denise Fox. Brian Lodge. Karen McGowan. Angela Orgenzio. Brian Holmeshaw. Talib Hussain. Mark Jones. Douglas Johnson. Ruth Mercereau. Martin Phipps. Tim Huggan.
For.
Mohammed Maroof. Ruth Milsom. Mary Lee. Zahira Naz. Joe Otten, Colin Ross, Martin Smith,
For.
Victoria Bowden, Moya O'Rourke, Alan Woodcock, Roger Davison, Barbara Masters, SHAFFAQ Mohammed,
For.
Abdul Qayyum, Abtizan Mohammed, Sue Alston, Andrew Sangar,
For.
Cliff Woodcraft, Alexi Diamond, Kate MacDonald, Paul Turpin, Ian Auckland, Sue Auckland, Steve Aris,
For.
Christine Gilligan, George Linders Hammond, Josie Paschek, Terry Fox, Anne Murphy, Tony Downing, Kevin Oxley, Peter Garbutt, Maroof Ralph, Alison Teal, Ben Miskell, Jack Scott, Sophie Wilson, Mike Drabble, Diane Hurst, Dawn Dale, Peter Price, Gary Weatherall, Mike Chaplin, Tony Dams, Jane Dunn, Penny Baker,
For.
Vicky Priestley, Richard Williams, Lewis Chinchin, Julie Grocott, Francine Johnson, Ben Curran, Neil Gibson, Bernard Little, Alan Hooper, Mike Levery, Anne Whittaker, Mick Rooney, Jackie Satter and Paul Wood.
That is lost. I'm now going to move to the substantive. Are members happy to vote on the motion as a whole or in each separate paragraph?
Lord Mayor, as before, we'll be abstaining on the Green, J and L from their amendment. We're voting for the rest.
Thank you. All those in favour of the Oh, sorry.
In abstaining on the motion, I'll be voting for everything that was in the original Lib Dem motion, against H, I and L of the Labour amendments, for paragraph I of the Green amendments, and for J, sorry, the Lib Dem amendment wasn't passed, so that doesn't matter.
Did we get that? Yeah, we'll sort that out. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. That's carried. Yes,
can I move a point of order here? I'd like to bring forward the debate on item 9 to the next place of business. I'd basically like to swap items 7 and 9.
I have to point out that we have got 3 minutes left for this item. I said, Councillor, that we were extending the council procedures to pay tribute to previous councillors. If you want to add more time to this meeting, then please. So are you making a proposal then, Councillor Dunn, that we extend the meeting for 45 minutes? We've had the proposal to change the order of business. All those in favour? Thank you. So we are now going to debate item number 9, notice of motion regarding investing in early years. There is a maximum of 25 minutes for this item, but not this time. May I call upon Councillor Dunn to move the motion? You may speak for up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. What can be more important than the children of our city? Nothing. What can be more important than those first few days, weeks, months and years of a child's life? Nothing. Which is why I'm bringing this motion today. We have always championed and prioritised early years, and it's why, under Councillor Fox's leadership, it's in the one-year plan, and it's a priority of this Council's. This Council has long understood what is needed to address the inequalities faced by children from poorer areas. Only last April, a research project supported by Councillor Abdesam Mohammed, Sheffield Hallam University and Save the Children began at Watercliff Meadows. I visited it yesterday. It's already changing lives. The recent peer review into early years is something I welcome. Its findings back up much of what we have championed here in Sheffield for the past decade. It's recommending a model of Sure Start, which we know worked. Why? Because it's a move away from just preparing children for school or allowing parents to work. They supported the whole family. They prepared a child for life, building confidence, resilience and ambition through play and hope. But are the government listening? It would appear not. Despite this overwhelming evidence, by its own admission, they are only investing 2/3 of what is needed. To recklessly underfund this sector means they are turning their backs on every child and family in this city. It's an insult to our dedicated staff and teachers who have worked tirelessly throughout this pandemic. They deserve recognition. I have written to Gavin Williamson not only to highlight the pressures services are under, but to draw attention to the historical funding gap, which the recent settlement does nothing to address. His response was pathetic. A response from myself, Schools Forum and the Early Years Working Group is being drafted. Not investing in early years is the social equivalent to climate change, and it needs to be taken as seriously. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, here in Sheffield, we have always prided ourselves on having the heart and soul of a village. So let's use that alongside our strength and power of being a city. Because as we come out of this pandemic, never have the children needed us more. Yesterday, I made a promise to a number of mums that I will be their voice and I have their back. But we need to do this together, because together we are stronger. Families, teachers, our unions, every man and woman in this city, so that every child from Southie to Dore, Stocksbridge to Mosborough gets the best start in life. Their futures depend on us. Our futures depend on them, because there is nothing more important than our children. Absolutely nothing. I propose this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. May I call on Councillor Mick Rooney to second the notice of motion? The motion, sorry. You can speak up to 2 minutes. That's not
the problem I've got, Lord Mayor, is that my voice is going. And some people might say that's not a bad thing. But
they might, but I never said that, Councillor.
I know you didn't. You wouldn't say such a thing.
I would not say that to you.
You are far too nice a person, Lord Mayor, to say that. Do you want the mic? Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Lord Mayor.
It's all right, don't worry.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. And I'd just like to add my congratulations to Councillor Holmeshaw for his excellent maiden speech. Effective early years provision has been shown to be crucial in ensuring a good start in life for children. And that's why, in the last few years, Labour in Sheffield has prioritised this area, and rightly so. However, due to the government attack on funding in this area that has happened since 2010, there is still more to do, I think. We'd all agree that. For instance, I have truly excellent providers of early years in my own ward of Richmond. But, you know, it's still the case that children there start primary school significantly behind their peers in the west of the city. You know, and I suppose this is kind of what makes the Lib Dem amendment a little hard to take for me. Because, you know, they talk about further investment, but, you know, every time in the past we have tried to invest in the parts of the city that need it most, they've talked about Labour having favoured areas. You know, so I'm going to ask them in the spirit of today to actually finally end this divisive rhetoric and actually show that they're serious about helping vulnerable children across Sheffield and not just in the prosperous areas they represent. You know, I think if they can do this, our ability to work together across this chamber and in the town hall on this vital issue for the future of our children and some of the most vulnerable people in society will be immeasurably enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. There are two proposed amendments, and these are number 9 and number 10 on your list of amendments circulated at the meeting. I now call upon Councillor Mike Levery to move the amendment number 9. You can speak up to 2 minutes, but shorter if you can manage it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations, Councillor Holmeshaw, on your maiden speech. The ultimate aim of children's centres is to position them at the heart of the service provision in their communities. This was said by the All-Party Parliamentary Group in 2015. By then, Sheffield had reduced from 42 to just 16 children's centres, arguably the lowest number for a city of this size to maintain that principle. And yet 2 years later, the Labour administration reduced it further to just 7 registered children's centres, on the basis there would be family centres with the remainder being linked sites. The Cabinet member at the time stated this is not about closing children's centres. It was. The linked centres withered on the vine, and the extension from early years to family centres never happened. Other cities maintained their centres well above the 16 that Sheffield were operating back in 2015, using the charities sector, who can access grants, and train volunteers to maintain provision in the communities. Cities like Labour-run Birmingham, Hull. It's called best value, a term that's an anathema to a Labour administration. It prefers a 1970s model of all public provision delivered by the Council. It's time for this administration to change direction and move this Council into the 21st century. Embrace the charity and voluntary sector and put children back at the heart of early years provision. And I commend this amendment to Council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Whittaker to second this amendment. This is Councillor Whittaker's maiden speech.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations to Councillor Holmeshaw on his maiden speech. It's obvious that we all agree that a child's early years are the foundation for their future development. Research has shown that investment into early years reach huge future benefits, not only for the children but also for their parents, having a positive effect on children's educational, behavioural and social outcomes. In the past, I've done a lot of work with families with young children in the voluntary sector, so have a clear understanding of what their support needs might be. For the last 7 years, I've been involved in running a community playgroup for children from 0 to 4 years and their parents or grandparents. The demand for groups like this is extremely high, and often groups have a waiting list like the one I'm involved in. In this voluntary role, I'm often asked to give support and advice, in particular to new mums who come along. And it would be really good if I had somewhere in the local area that I could signpost them to, as I think that would have huge benefits. Having to travel with small children to their nominated family centre is not always a good option for them. While parenting can be incredibly difficult and challenging at times, Parents are the first and most important educators in their child's life. They need to acquire the appropriate skills and support. We know that early intervention with families experiencing difficulties is vitally important, and this support needs to be in the local area so that it's easy for them to access. This was where Sure Start Children's Centres came in, as a one-stop shop for children and their families in areas where the need was the greatest. Indeed, 12 years ago, as a first-time grandmother and feeling very daunted at the prospect of taking on childcare duties, I took advantage of the activities and support that was offered at my local Sure Start Children's Centre. This is a link site now that offers very little in terms of parenting support and activities, so no longer meets the needs of the local community. In fact, describing it as a link centre is completely misleading, as it's now substantially operated by the school. Whilst we all acknowledge that government funding to the early years has been cut considerably, we must also consider that despite these cuts, other cities have fared far better than Sheffield in continuing to operate their children's centres. Therefore, action needs to be taken to ensure that services meet the needs of families when and where they are required. Thank you.
Congratulations, Councillor Whittaker, on an excellent maiden speech. From now on, we are going to move all. From now on, we're not going to have any speeches. We are going to move formally. So I call upon Councillor Diamond to move amendment number 10 formally, please. He spoke at the last council meeting. Thank you. We are now going to move this formally. So, Councillor Diamond. Thank you. Councillor Martin Phipps. Thank you. We now move to the... Oh, no, we don't. We now... I'm now going to move for us to vote on amendment number 9. No. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. All those... are we voting in parts? No. So all those in favour? All those against? That's lost. So, yeah. And we're now going to vote on amendment number 10. All those in favour?
Lord Mayor,
what have I missed?
you missed the voting in parts sentence again.
I certainly did. Thank you for that, Councillor.
So, Labour Group, in voting to accept this amendment, are rejecting the paragraph O.
So all those in favour of
Lord
amendment...
Mayor, sorry, I need to vote in parts. Please clap. In voting for the amendment, I'll be abstaining on K, L, M and N. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more voting in parts? No? Okay. All those in favour? Oh, that's carried. Within the parts, you know. Yeah. We're now going to vote on the substantive motion. Is there any voting in parts? Councillor?
Thank you. We'll be voting for, but against the original C to J.
Any more voting in parts?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor. In abstaining on the motion, I will be voting against C to F of the original Labour motion, and I'll be voting in the same way as I did on the Green amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favour, please raise your hands. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're now going to vote on notice of motion item number 8. Councillor Douglas Johnson, can I ask you to formally move?
Formally, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gilligan? Thank you. Oh, I've lost my track here. Yes, because we are, if you remember, it was asked to be moved. So it's at the back of my pile of papers, so I thought I'd leave it at the back. Carry on. Okay. So, okay. There are 2 proposed amendments. Amendment number 7, Councillor Mark Jones. Can you formally move that, please? Thank you. Councillor Chaplin. Thank you. We're now on amendment number 8. Councillor Tim Huggan. Can you formally move that, please?
Formally move.
Thank you. Councillor Barbara Masters. Can you formally second it? Yeah, I can see your lips moving. That's fine. We're now going to vote. Oh, dear me, what a day. We're now going to vote on the... Oh, is there not another amendment, is there? I've lost... No. We're now going to... Are there any voting in parts?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor. We are on Amendment 7. I'm sorry, it's Councillor Mark Jones' amendment. Are we all happy to vote, or is there voting in parts?
Please, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
In abstaining on Amendment 7, I'll be voting for K and L and against G and I.
Thank you, Councillor.
We will be voting for this amendment, but abstaining on G.
Okay, thank you for that. So all those in favour, please vote. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. I'm now going to move to the vote on amendment number 8. Can you formally move that, Councillor Huggan? Oh, you've already moved it, that's right. Are members happy to vote on this amendment as a whole or in each separate paragraph? All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That's carried. Now going to vote on the substantive. Are members happy to vote on the motion as a whole or in each separate paragraph?
We'll be voting against the G clause in Labour's original as before.
Thank you. Any other?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor. In voting for the motion, I'll be voting for... Sorry, just to check, which one are we on?
Number 8 now, yes.
Motion number 8?
Yeah.
Okay. In voting for the motion, I'll be voting in the same way as I did for the Labour amendments. And Sorry, no, that's it. It's ridiculous. That's fine. No, I'm not voting in parts. Just the same way as I was in the amendments, please.
Fine. All those in favour, please vote. Any abstentions? That's carried. We now move to item 7, notice of motion regarding right to food. May I call upon... Oh, is she... Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can you please formally move the motion, Councillor Miss MILSOM? Formally. Yes, thank you. Councillor Wilson, will you second that formally? You're only doing it formally.
No. Lord Mayor,
No.
I need to notify you of a technical amendment to this motion in paragraph L, which should be amended to calls for the right to food to be incorporated into amendment the forthcoming government white paper in response to the National Food Strategy.
Have we got that? Thank you. Can you now move it formally?
Formally moved. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Is Council happy to accept that alteration? Thank you. Councillor Sophie Wilson, can you formally second? Thank you. There are 3 proposed amendments, 4, 5 and 6 on the list. Councillor Steve Ayres, can you formally move?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Sorry,
it should have been Councillor. It doesn't matter now. Councillor Woodcraft, will you formally second, please? I'm losing will to live here. May I call on Councillor Teal, please, to move amendment number 5? You may move it, please. Formally, now. Councillor Paul Turpin. Thank you. May I call upon my deputy, sat here? Very good, she is. Can you formally move amendment number 6?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Thank you so much. Councillor Ben Miskell, can you please second the amendment formally? Thank you. We now move to the... No, we don't. We're moving to another page. Right, we need to vote. Any voting in parts?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor.
Yes?
In abstaining on... In voting for the Lib Dem amendments, I will be voting against D and abstaining on A, F, I and K.
Thank you. Any other?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor.
Sorry, Diane.
No, you're okay. It's been a long, hot afternoon. In voting against the Lib Dem amendment, we will be voting for 2, I, J and K. Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
In voting for the amendment, we are voting against 1, but for 2.
Thank you. Just voting. All those in favour, please show your hands. All those against? That's carried in parts. No, I'm not. I'm now going to move to the vote on Councillor Teal's amendment. Is there any voting in parts? No. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I'm going to have to take that again. So, we miss. Right, we'll go back. All those in favour? See, you didn't vote last time, you were asleep. It's all right, I'll let you off. Any abstentions? That's carried. Oh dear. We're now on amendment number 5.
Oh, 5.
No, it's not. 6, isn't it? 23, yeah. Yeah, it is. Are there any voting in parts?
Lord Mayor.
Yes?
So, in voting for this amendment, we are abstaining on O.
Councillor Chinchan?
Lord Mayor, in abstaining on this amendment, I'm voting for Q.
Now going to move to the vote. And there are no more. Right. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? 1. That's carried. On page 25. Are there any voting in parts on the motion?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor.
Yep, can I have them then?
So, in voting for, we will be voting against the A to C in the original motion and abstaining on O from the amendment as before.
Lord Mayor, could I just confirm, has the Lib Dem amendment not passed?
It has not, no. No, the Lib Dem one did, yes.
Did, okay. So, in abstaining on the motion, I'll be voting for B, C, E and J of the Lib Dem amendment, against D of the Lib Dem amendment, and I'll be voting against A of the original Labour motion, and for F, G, H, I and J of the original Labour motion. And for Q of the Labour amendment.
Can you give us that in writing,
Yes.
please, for the minutes?
It's
please. Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Lord
All those
Mayor.
in favour?
Lord
please.
Mayor,
Sorry.
voting in parts, please.
Oh yes.
In voting in favour of this, we're voting against 1C of the Lib Dem amendment.
All those in favour? Please vote. Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Item 10 on the, is the item on the agenda. Minutes of previous council meetings. It is proposed that the minutes of the special meeting of the council held on the 18th of March, the ordinary meeting of the council on the 31st of March, and the annual general meeting of the council held on the 19th of May 2021 be approved as a true record. Is that formally moved, Councillor Hurst?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Weatherall. Formally second.
Moved, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Item 11 on the agenda is representation and delegated authorities related issues. Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Diane Hurst, seconded by Councillor Weatherall, that approval be given to the changes in membership of committees, etc. the appointments of representatives to serve on external bodies and related issues as detailed in the schedule circulated at this meeting. Councillor Hurst?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Weatherall?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can we vote on that, please? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. That's finished, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm now going to propose that we have 30 minutes to do tributes to councillors that left us. I know it's a long time, but you're the ones that take my time up. So, can I ask, is everyone in favour of extending the meeting for a further 30 minutes so that we can eventually get the tributes over and done with for councillors that have left? All those in favour? So you want me to move this onto yet another agenda for another meeting when it's going to be... When are we ever going to say thank you to the people that served us and left us in May then? So can somebody might be able to help? I do. I think it's appalling that we've got to this stage and we haven't said thank you to the people.
I agree, Lord Mayor, but on the other hand, as somebody who's got a disability, kidney renal failure, actually I am melting in this room. And if I thought that I could spend another half an hour in this room putting up with this heat, with the lack of fluids, and not being able to nip to the bathroom, I'm really going to struggle. So I don't know about anybody else who is also struggling. You've got my other colleague here who's in a lot of pain with his leg. And I really do appreciate what you're saying about the tributes, but I think we should leave it for another council meeting, and maybe we start with the tributes rather than actually leave it to the very end. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I offer... I agree with Councillor Murphy that it's perhaps a bit too late and a bit too hot today. And can I ask that we refer it to the whips to either suggest another meeting time or another part of the meeting or another way, such as written tributes?
To vote on that. All those in favour of what's been proposed? Okay. Thank you for your time this afternoon, colleagues. It's not been easy. It's very hot in here.
Lord Mayor.
Too am melting.
Lord Mayor.
I don't know where I'm looking.
It's me. Can I just read out a message from Alison for everyone?
Yes, please.
It says, we've been watching. It was lovely. Please pass on my thanks to everyone. Will found it really helpful. So thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. I close the meeting. Have a safe journey home. Don't get too drunk.